All right, everybody, here we go. Boy, the voice. It's coming back sooner or later. Today is Tuesday. I can't get rid of this, whatever it is. I can't get rid of it. Tuesday, 26. Yeah, just crazy. 2026. My name is Robb Carter. Welcome to the future. #1 radio/podcast in America. Well, we got a lot to get to today. I couldn't wait to get this guy on, Carey.
Oh, yeah.
Put out a preview yesterday, but let me just lay this out for everybody. This will answer a lot of questions for us, Isaiah, because I'm watching the divide between the millennials and the boomers, and I'm watching that begin to grow. You're aware of it. You know, we talk about it all the time with Nick Fuentes and the young people beginning to question our relationship with Israel. Carey, I talked to him for just a little bit yesterday. He says one of the reasons Thomas Massie lost was he was attacking boomers, and boomers came out in revenge and voted against him in the primaries in Kentucky. So I want to pick his brain about that. He knows Thomas Massie all the way back before Thomas Massie was even a congressman. So he has some history with Thomas Massie. He is the one that interviewed Cynthia West of MMTLP fame. And, you know, I thought that thing was a little bit odd. You know, I don't know Cynthia West, so I don't like to cast aspersions upon people that I don't know, and I don't know their motives, and I just don't know what's going on there. All I can say is that once you run to Laura Loomer, I have to question your motives, because I think Laura Loomer is a mental patient who is pro-Israel and not pro-America. She is pro-Israel first, and if America happens to fall in line with whatever Israel wants, then she's America second. That's the way I would look at Laura Loomer. It's just my take on her. I've been watching her very closely for quite some time. I can tell you that's, wait a minute.
That's the fact, Jack! That's the fact, Jack!
There you go. So I want to pick his brain. He'll be in at 10 o'clock talking about the effect of AIPAC on the election, how the people of Kentucky feel about Thomas Massie. Do they feel he is a fraud? Do they feel he betrayed Donald Trump? You know, I tell you what, Donald Trump is the most amazing politician in the history of the world, as far as I'm concerned. It is just incredible. He's not running for office anymore. He's not running anymore. Constitutionally, he can't run anymore, right? So this is it. This is it. Make no... I'll sing the whole song with that.
I don't know that one.
You don't know that one either? Come on, Isaiah.
I know. What is it? You got to tell me every time so I can learn.
No mistake. I think that's Kenny Loggins. This is it.
Okay.
But anyway, Donald Trump is, if you mention Donald Trump, people have a visceral reaction in favor or against Donald Trump. Even to this day, you cannot escape the polarizing figure that Donald Trump is in American politics nowadays. I continue to say I'm skeptical of Donald Trump. I disagree with a lot of the things that he did, but he's not running anymore. He's not really relevant to whether you like or dislike him. He's not running. So whether you like him or dislike him, who could possibly care at this point? It doesn't even matter. What matters is his influence, and what he's influencing. Do you approve or do you not approve? Right? That's really where it comes down to. Do you approve of the deals that he's making, of the moves that he's making, of the way he's framing his opposition? Are you in favor of that? And if you are, then I would disagree with you, right? I don't like being called an anti-Semitic person. I do not like the almost unbreakable chains to Israel and Miriam Adelson. I just disagree with that point of view, right? Doesn't make the other side evil. It just means that I disagree with what's going on as an American citizen. So long as it's still free to have an opinion, that's my opinion. And I don't hate everybody who disagrees with me. That's why I told Carey yesterday, Isaiah, I don't care that you disagree at all. He goes, well, he said, you're an adult. I said, well, I don't know if I'm an adult or not, but I don't know all of the answers. I don't know the answers to some of these questions. Yeah. That is why I'm so adamant about having discussion. You know, I keep getting attacked online by people associated in Missouri with this organization called the Freedom Principle. And I don't have any problem with the people at the Freedom Principle. I disagree with them on many different subjects. They're very pro AI data center. And I'm like, I thought you guys were grassroots. Grassroots is not for AI data centers. So if you're for them and we all have it wrong, can we have a public conversation about it so that you can I can learn something from you? I haven't heard anything back yet. Right. Same thing with the Show Me Sentinel. They keep attacking me. Kirk Hilsinger. I just want these people to say, I just want to tell you guys that I'm not mad at you. I disagree with you politically. I thought that was still, are we still in America to where we don't have to hate each other? You don't have to try to take me down and make me feel like I'm some horrible person, or that they always put I live in Florida. I say it's the greatest.
Yep.
Like I've been on the radio for 3 years. I think people know that I live in Florida by now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've been talking.
I don't think you're trying to hide it.
I don't think it's a secret anymore. I think Kirk just figured it out, but I think my audience has known about it since day one because I've talked about it.
He thinks he's trying to expose something.
He's breaking a big story. Kirk's mind. And all I want to do is have a conversation with these people. And that's one of the things I'm going to ask Carey, because he's going to come in and give you his opinion of Thomas Massie, Ed Gallereinstein, and the rest. Right? He's going to tell us what he thinks about Kentucky politics. But all I ask for is a conversation. How can that be a bad thing? And what I would bring to his attention is that how does Ed Gallerein, who nobody even knows who he is, handpicked by Donald Trump to run against Thomas Massie in the primaries, where Thomas Massie was getting 80%, right? He was getting 80% of the vote up until Ed Gallereinstein gets in the picture. And then Ed Gallereinstein wins the election without debating Thomas Massie. This doesn't make any sense to me in America anymore. I just don't understand where Americans are coming from. And that goes back to Carey Lake with Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs said, the debate about debates is over. She wouldn't debate Carey Lake. You have Donald Trump not debating in the Republican primaries. It seems now if you don't debate, that gives you a leg up. And I just don't believe that to be true, Isaiah. Something's going on. I do not believe that the American people are going, you know what we want is we want you to keep your opinions to yourself, never take any challenges, never ask any tough questions, and then we'll put you in a position of power so you can make decisions for us. I just don't believe that's where America is at. Do you, Isaiah? Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah. Look at this. Kirk tried telling me yesterday that no one agrees with you.
I saw that. Well, he didn't say all, but he said not everybody agrees with you. And I said, yeah, so what? I agree.
Not everybody agrees with you, Kirk.
Right. That's the whole point of America, I thought. But I tell you, these people, they are insistent on trying to drag me down, which I just got to tell them it's not going to work, Isaiah. I mean, they just don't know who, they just don't understand the deal. That's never going to happen. You're not going to shut me down. It's just not going to happen. I get back and forth to Missouri enough. I will be at your meetings. I will confront you personally. I'll confront you on the show. I'll confront you on the internet. I'll confront you wherever you go, not because I dislike Kirk Hilsinger or the people at Freedom Principle or the people at Show Me Sentinel or anybody involved with them. It's because I disagree with you, and I think we're getting down to brass tacks now. I think the country is in trouble. I think it's in big time trouble when it comes to surveillance. Our Fourth Amendment rights are just gone bye-bye. Their argument is that we're already being surveilled. This is their argument. Right?
Oh, it's already here, so who cares?
I don't know. I hate to inform you, but we're already being surveilled on your phones and your computers, and we have cameras at all the stoplights. Yeah. I agree with you. And I didn't vote for that. I don't think Isaiah voted for that. I don't think Americans voted for total surveillance by Big Brother in their own country. I just don't think that's where we're going. And then when you have Fox News go over to China and go, look at these cameras everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's cameras. And we call them the enemy and then do exactly the same as they do to their people in our land. And when you push back against it, you get called anti-patriotic and anti-Republican. Make sense of that one for me, anybody? They can't. That's why I want to have conversations with Isaiah. But I think the reason they don't want to do it is because they don't have answers to any of these questions. And then they would have to deflect. And they think that I probably would recognize it's being deflected because I'm good with propaganda. And I would say, can you just answer the questions? Before you start on your rant, just answer I'll answer all of your questions. Just answer mine. And I don't think they'd be able to do it. I think that's the problem that we find ourselves in, Isaiah. No answers to the questions. And you got to remember, just recently, who was it that didn't debate? Oh, Mike Kehoe in Missouri, talking about debates, people not debating. Mike Kehoe is the only one that doesn't do the debate. You had Ashcroft and Bill Eigel and another guy that didn't have much of a chance. I forget his name, Chris something. They debated, but the guy who won didn't show up. It's a good life if you can get it. That's what I say. Same
thing with Ed Gallereinstein.
Yeah, he didn't debate.
No.
Now I guess what we're telling the American people is if you don't debate, that's the leg up. You just don't want to confront anybody.
If you don't tell anyone what you're standing for, then they can't attack you on it, I guess, huh?
Right. All you got to do pardon me. All you got to do is just go to the other side and say, this is what they did. You don't have, they can't defend themselves. And then you spend millions of dollars to put these ads out, defaming people, selling a different version of what reality is. And the people don't know because they're busy trying to survive in this world. And yet you don't get confronted on your accusations. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. All right. Today's show is sponsored by People's Lobby Mo. I thought my voice was doing good until I woke up this morning, guys. We got 3 hours to go. This could be a hassle.
You got to get into you have to figure out a drink. Maybe Everett's daughter could help you, but you have to have something
that's coming on Friday.
Yeah, you have to drink something every day, especially because you talk every single day. You have to drink something every morning, not just water, but that's what a lot of preachers and news anchors and speakers do. Is you'll see them drinking like tea or some type of honey drink every single day. Yeah, because it helps just you're every day you're straining your voice for a few hours, and so it's you got to take care of it or you lose it.
I'm not happy with the situation. I want it better immediately. I want it better immediately. Today's show sponsored by People's Lobby Missouri. Again, if you're joining us from Missouri, Florida, or around the country, we have to have free. The biggest problem we have, Isaiah, just something I noticed before we get into this. I think the real problem we have is that free thinkers all want to be their own leader. And it's hard to corral free thinkers into a box and say, listen, we can all disagree on certain things, but can we agree that we need to follow the Constitution? Can we agree that we need transparency in government? Can we agree that we need lower taxes and less government surveillance of our citizens? Are there a few things that we can just agree on? And then if we can, as free thinkers, can we organize ourselves to make those things not happen? We can argue about all the rest internally, but can we stand together to fight against things that we know are going to destroy our country? It's going to destroy our freedom and liberty. Next generations aren't going to have a chance. They're just not going to have a chance unless we stop this now, because the technological trap is being built. People's Lobby Missouri is about government accountability, low taxation, elections that matter. Because again, if you don't have elections, everything else is just theatrics. And I don't think people can get out of the theatrics game, Isaiah. I don't think they can do it. We're so conditioned to believe Democrat, Republican. We go through the elections. Everybody gets their yard signs out and everybody's this and that and the other. But nobody's even talking about the referees. Could you imagine, Isaiah, for example, could you imagine being in a game of life or death? Let's say it's basketball. And the officials, you don't even know who they are, or if they have a rooting interest, or if they have money on one side or the other, or they're rooting for one side or the other. You don't even pay attention to the officials in a game that is for life and death. That's what this is right now. The elections are the official, and nobody in America can explain. I'm not talking about the election people. I'm talking about just citizens that vote. Nobody can explain the election system. Yep. Not one person can explain the election system. And yet we vote in these ridiculous, manipulated, just sickening and ridiculous election systems. And nobody on the Democrat or Republican side does anything to fix it whatsoever. They can't pass the SAVE Act.
They'll complain about it, though.
They can't pass the SAVE Act.
I know.
I think they will.
Every side complains about the elections when the other's in charge. So the Democrats now, they complained about the elections, as we saw Nancy Pelosi talking about it, because Donald Trump won. And then when the Democrats win,
now that the Republicans are going to steal the elections.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't? Why? And again, these are the questions that if we had real journalism, that's why ultimately when you watch this show, what you're going to see over time, and I'm good at this, Isaiah, there are things that I'm good at. Okay. I'm not good at everything, but there are things that I'm good at. One of them is never quitting. I do not stop coming. Just so you understand, I don't stop. Don't stop till you get enough. I just don't stop. And that's just my personality. Anybody that knows me, I'm 56. I have a record of not stopping when I get started on something. I do. Ask my wife. When I decided I wanted to marry her, there was a full court press from until she said yes. She was trying to escape. I wouldn't let her do it. We're going to get some things resolved, and we are going to build an infrastructure for independent journalism. That's why I was so excited to go see Ann Vandersteel the other day. Independent journalism is the key to regaining our republic. You do not have free journalism. You don't have free elections. You don't have free anything anymore. You don't have freedom of finance. You don't have freedom of movement. You don't have freedom of anything. You have no freedom at all anymore. Only the guise of freedom, because you get to spend Saturday afternoon with your wife out at lunch that costs $100 nowadays. That's your freedom. That you can get in your car. You're going to be surveilled everywhere you go. But freedom as we understood it as kids, Isaiah, I don't know how much you got of it, but my generation, that freedom is not there anymore. It's not there. If somebody can read my communications with somebody, it'd be like eavesdropping on the phones back in the day with Bell telephone. So somebody can just eavesdrop on all of my phone calls. And then not only that, but they can release my phone calls out into the public if they want to try to hurt me, right? I might have said something sarcastic to somebody. Just release it. We have your text messages. We have your email. Look at Epstein, right? That just shows you right there. Every Epstein email in the history of Jeffrey Epstein was surveilled. Every one of them. You don't think they're surveilling yours? What if you decide to run for office and you said something you're ashamed of 20 years ago? You think they can pull that out on you? What if you had an affair and then you've reconciled it, prayed about it, come to terms with it with your Lord, but they want to use it against you? What do? There's nothing you can do. That goes against our Fourth Amendment privileges in this country that nobody seems to want to fight for anymore. Flock cameras, 702, FISA warrants, the Patriot Act, AI data surveillance, the whole thing. If it were one thing isolated, you could make a case for it. but it is total surveillance that they're looking for. And you have Republicans like Kirk Hilsinger. Do you know who this guy is, by the way? I think he is the handpicked salesman for AI data centers by Mike. I do. I think that's who he is.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a negative fashion. I just think that's what his gig is. He's to go out there and sell AI data centers. And I think that the people surrounding that idea, they can't be doing it because they think it's good for the state of Missouri and the country. Can they, Isaiah? Can anybody go, boy, we really need to be surveilled at every turn? I mean, look at the advances. We're gonna have better health. All of your records are going to be right there where anybody can see them. Your health records, your political records, your email, every communication you've ever made is going to be stored by Big Brother. It's going to be so fantastic. And then we're going to be able to surveil you with the kill switches in the cars, the flock cameras, the 702 FISA warrants, the AI data centers can all store that. We can surveil you forever. That is going to be so fantastic. Rob, don't you get how wonderful it's going to be? You really believe that these people think that? Or is there some involvement with party politics, big money coming from the big corporations, and all that is kind of put into a bowl, and they begin to promote something that they know in the back of their minds is a real problem for American citizens when Big Brother can surveil you at every turn. It's just hard for me to believe that that's where they're coming from. Isaiah, do you disagree? What do you think?
I'm a big proponent of, one, understanding how we're being surveilled, and then two, because I think that a lot of people don't understand the amount that we're surveilled. I think they understand with our phones, but I don't think they understand what the flock safety cameras actually do. I don't think they understand what Palantir does and the database that it creates. I don't think they understand Anthropic and the power that it has. And then I also don't think they understand the power of AI hyperscale data centers versus the traditional data centers that we already have that aren't so impactful on our environment and are not built to surveil us. They're built to just store data. Rather, these new data centers are built to handle intense processing power at, I don't know the actual number, but 10 times, we'll say, the speed. It's probably like 100 to 200 times the speed because of GPUs. If you know anything about computers, these new GPUs are so much faster than traditional CPUs. And the biggest problem is that with flock cameras, anyone can just go in there if you have access to it, a officer, or if you're an executive at the flock safety company, and you can just search this database.
Can I just say flock AI data centers right off the top?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Flock them.
Get the flock out of here.
Flock them. Flock the AI data centers. No, I agree with you, Isaiah. That's exactly how I see it. I don't think
there's even like police officers are using it when like a police officer, I think it was in St. Louis. I can't remember if this is the exact story, but if it was from St. Louis, but a police officer somewhere, his wife, I guess, or girlfriend cheated on him and broke up with him. And so then he used that to try to track down the guy that she cheated on him with. And, that's just that's a warrantless search, what I mean? And so that's the access that they have, unfortunately. And I don't think people realize that that's the level of access, because the federal government, I think I said this before, the federal government has access to this, and then local governments can get warrants to get information from this, right?
Yes.
But they can just go into their system and
they can have contractors do it on their own, Isaiah. We learned that with Trump and Russia.
Well, so and also the flock.
You send in a contractor. They're not going to get any trouble because they're not a part of the government, and then the contractor gives the government the information.
Yep. And then flock safety executives, just a couple weeks ago, they were found out that someone you can track and trace through Sunshine Data. Someone spent about $1 million to get this data, and flock executives, VPs, were entering into cameras and were watching Littleton's gymnastics inside of flock cameras that were inside of different places. So that's the access they have.
It's everything you do. If you saw the movie Snowden, and I've talked about this before, the guy was looking through a turned off television set into a bedroom where somebody was making love to their wife.
Yep.
This is the kind of power and surveillance that we have right now. Are you down with that? Is everybody okay with that? That the government can watch you make love to your wife? Are we all cool with that?
Yeah. Right. Kirk's cool with it.
Kirk must be cool with it.
Yep.
More AI data centers.
Yeah.
All right.
Which something is super random, completely off topic here, but I used to be big on LinkedIn. I was like a sales LinkedIn influencer back in the day when I was in tech, and I was like on the, LinkedIn top 100 sales stars and things like that.
Look at you.
And so I have a lot of different connections on LinkedIn, and I just looked at Kirk's LinkedIn page here. And so let me just share this so you guys can see what I'm seeing here. But this is his. So you can see what he did.
Let me see what he looks like. I've never seen him before. Okay. All right.
So you can see what his background is.
What is it?
Network architecture engineer. He went to Missouri S&T. So he's a network
so he's an engineer.
Yeah. So he's an engineer. So he's, so
he's smart.
He has a vested interest, I would say. You know what I mean?
I would assume.
First Brands Group managed staff of 8 network work on integrating. See, so he can.
See, this is the difference between engineers and people like me.
Yeah. But then this is the real kicker.
What'd you find?
You see this mutual connection?
Who is it? I can't see it.
I'll zoom in. He's the Associate Deputy Attorney General for the U.S. Department of Justice. Ed Martin.
Oh, he's close with Ed Martin?
He's connections with him on LinkedIn. Doesn't mean anything, but I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if that means anything.
No, it doesn't mean anything. It's just
Ed's a good dude from everybody that I talk to.
Yeah.
A really good dude, actually.
It was just interesting that he's connected to government. He's starting to connect with government officials, and all he is a network engineer. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
good morning, Elaine. Good morning.
That's what's interesting. That's what's interesting to me, Rob, is that he's just a network architect. He's just a network engineer, but he's connected to these government people. He's connected to MyKeo.
Right.
It
appears.
It appears.
Allegedly.
It appears. Allegedly.
Let's do People's Lobby, Mo.
Let's do it.
I can't wait to get Marcus Carey in here. I've never been this excited to have a conversation because he just is the. I think he is good spirited. I think he's a bright person, and I think he's in the middle of everything that I want to have a conversation about. So it's going to be so fantastic. I can't wait. We got to cut that up, by the way, Isaiah.
Oh yeah,
we got to figure out a way to cut that baby up. There's People's Lobby, Missouri. Again, just very quickly, People's Lobby, Missouri is your voice. It is your voice to get your government out of their offices, out of their campaign schedules, and into conversations, town halls. Just drag them into the public eye so we can have real conversations with them. You cannot have a society where the local press and the national press is in bed with the political parties. You can't do that. You got to stop doing that. All right. People's Lobby Missouri does not have a party affiliation. We don't care about Democrats, Republicans. In fact, we think at least I do. I think the two-party system is really just a one-party system, and I think it's destroying our country because we continue to fight each other because that's what they want. That's how they get away with all of this nonsense, is to have us fighting. Let's draw them out. Let's ask them questions about what they're doing in Jefferson City. Let's figure out what is happening here. Make them answer difficult questions in a public forum. It will change the entire game because once they recognize, and I think many, Isaiah, don't even recognize that they're a part of anything. I really don't. I think they're good, well-meaning people. They get into a system. They recognize the system for what it is. They think they have to work within that system. They never think of changing the system. They think of working within that system and all of the things they have to do to get ahead in that system for their constituents or for themselves, either one. Doesn't matter to me. People's Lobby Missouri is your answer. And I hope that it franchises all across the nation once we get ours up and running and people see what we can accomplish, which is we're not far from. We're within 18 months. 18 months of really having an effect. Right now, it's just the beginning stages. Isaiah and I have not got out there to expand our platform just yet. That's coming. We're getting to Washington, D.C. Isaiah and I are going to be where the action's at. We're going to bring the news to you, and we're going to give it to you in a proper fashion. We're not out there for clicks and for this and for that. We're out there to give you news. And if you want it, come to People's Lobby Missouri and get it. We could always use donations. Donations makes the dream work. If you cannot afford a donation, just sign up. Go to Facebook, People's Lobby Mo, peopleslobbymo.com, or check us out on Facebook at People's Lobby Mo or at People's Lobby Mo on X. Either way it goes, stay in contact with us so you can hear better information about your state of Missouri and your world, peopleslobbymo.com. Please, if you can, small donations. We want 10,000 people at $5 a piece. Then we can run a serious marketing campaign month in and month out and compete with the millions, if not billions of dollars that floods into the states that determines the legislation that these people vote on. It determines you don't have a say. Where's Bryant Wolfen? People think I'm lying. Let me get Bryant. Where is he? Here we go. Okay, this is Bryant Wolfen. This is, in my opinion, this is the best House rep in the state of Missouri. He does an interview with Jake Jackson from People's Lobby Missouri. And this is what the guy who, Act for Missouri, said voted most with the Constitution. right? So this is the guy that votes with the Constitution, which he's obligated to do. So when he puts his hand on the Bible and says he's going to do is abide by the Constitution. This is the guy that abides by the Constitution the most. He was interviewed by Jake Jackson, who's a part of People's Lobby Missouri. And this is what Bryant Wolfen from Missouri, House Rep Bryant Wolfen, had to say about the system in Missouri.
When we don't have a say, your representative, so like the people of the People's Lobby, like your representative doesn't really have a say in this building. They're not representing you.
That's true.
Got it? That makes sense, everybody? Okay, there's somebody that's in the system that's trying. All I want from the people that go to Jefferson City, the people that we are going to support, the people that we are going to, I guess endorse is the best word. I'm going to endorse a lot of people, right? The people that I think are going to make a change in the world, change in Missouri. All we want for them is to expose the system and change it. We're not looking for you to go in there and work within it and go, Rob, I had to do it. I mean, in order to get this legislation done, what I had to do over here was raise your taxes. That's what I had to do it, Rob. It's, you just don't understand how the game is played. Rob, when I got up here, I figured out how the game was played, and I had to do this to get that and this to get. That's what I say to all of it. I'm sick and tired of hearing it. Your system is killing Missouri. It's killing our nation. It's taking our freedoms and our liberties away. For the love of God, get with it, people.
Yeah, state representatives,
we don't want your nonsense anymore. We don't care how the game is played. We don't like the game that you're playing because it's not working out to our advantage. How many times $5 in gas, is that working out to our advantage? Do we like that? No, we don't like that. We don't like that our 15-year-old boys that weigh 300 pounds are going and changing their clothes in the girls' locker rooms in the state. We don't like that. Oh, we don't like transgender surgery for 14-year-olds. We need to sunset that because the Republican leader, John Patterson, said we need to put a sunset on transitioning children. This is what we're voting for. This is the Republican Party. This is what we're after. And they don't have to face any questions about that. They just roll with it and go, well, I mean, that was the other Congress. We're the good Congress. We're the good ones. We're coming. We're going to do good this time. Those people before us, they were bad. That was a bad Congress before us.
They made it hard.
We're going to change it by doing the exact same thing. Don't you understand? We're going to do it exactly the same way, but we're going to change it in the state of Missouri. But it's every state. It's not just Missouri. It's every effing state. We are losing our way forward. There is good news. I don't mean to be all negative, but there is a problem that we have to solve. And by the way, Isaiah, you have to remind me every time we do this. You don't have to hate your life to know what's going on around your world, do you, Isaiah?
No.
I'm a black pillar. I'm a this. I'm a that. I'm the happiest guy in the world. My wife and I, when we get out of here today, we're going to go spend the day together with my absolutely ridiculously smoking hot wife, and I'm going to have a great day. Like I always do. I'm going to have a great day with my wife. Everything's going to be just fine. I have great friends, great family. I love my life. I love being in America. I love having the freedom to say these things. Now, we don't get freedom of reach, as Isaiah is fully aware. We have to figure that out. But we have the right to say it. We're free to say it. You're free to hear it. That's why it's a great country. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get away with it like Jeffrey Winehouse did. He didn't get away with it, Isaiah.
Nope.
That's a little bit.
Like and share. We didn't say that at the bat.
Like
we
and
are
share.
Really suppressed today. I would imagine has to do with the live stream.
The Israel lobby.
The content we're covering. I think what did I call? Yeah, Zionism, AIPAC, and Thomas Massie scandal with Marcus Carey. That's the name of the live stream. So I'm sure they are really suppressing it. And I started the Facebook stream late, but usually Facebooks are lower live viewers.
I think that's just a part of the game. We're gonna have to deal with that.
Oh yeah,
we'll get it out there. Get it out there. We have not bought boosting or any of that stuff either, which I guess we have the money to do now.
Yeah. We need to get some clips going.
Can I give people the good news from the first month?
Let's do it.
We brought in over $30,000 in the first month on the show.
Woo!
Over $30,000. Now we've got to spread that out, and we got to put money into the show. Some people paid for their entire advertising up front. Very exciting for us because it gives us wiggle room to do some of the things that we want to do. I was talking to the people building the website yesterday. All right, so we have a conversation, Isaiah knows, at 1 o'clock today to help build our website, to help get the message out, to help boost posts, to help travel, to help get to DC, to help get to South Florida, to help get to Jefferson City, to help all the equipment that we bought. I've got to be close to $10,000 in equipment, Isaiah, when it's all said and done. Probably more. And just equipment alone, just to put this on. Not playing games. Can I get an amen?
Yeah. Your internet connection's a little rough right now.
Mine?
Yeah.
Seems like it's good.
Oh, yeah. You're laggy.
I'm not on mine. I don't see mine that way.
Yeah, I just checked online too. You're lagging and pixelated, which means it's a internet connection issue on your end.
And I'm hardwired.
Yeah, it'd be it doesn't matter. It can be speed.
All right. Well,
RAK
Custom Coatings.
You just keep going, just letting you know.
All right, RAK Custom Coatings.
Let's do it.
Is the sound off?
No, we can hear you. It's just lagging.
I actually need Isaiah, how much would it cost us to have an audio app?
Probably thousands of dollars.
How many thousands? I want to see if we can get an advertiser to do that. Yeah. I think if we had an audio app, it would be fantastic for people to put that on their phones, and then they can just put it in their car when they're driving.
I just think unfortunately, it's just not worth the investment because we're not going to see a great return on investment from it. That's something
we get a return, but I think we'd have more people able to listen because right now, I think what's going on is a lot of people see this now as a visual presentation. But if they had an app and it was just an audio presentation, I think those people, when they were in their cars and traveling around and working throughout the day, would be able to just listen. And I know they can now if they put it on Rumble and so forth, but I think it just makes it so easy just to go to an app, hit it, and go. Anyway, I'm just talking.
I think it's a waste. It's a waste of money. That's always going to be my opinion.
Quit peeing on my parade.
I know. It's sorry. It's just facts. That's a fact, Jack.
Well, nobody else does it. That's why I want to do it. RAKCustomCoatings.com. Locally owned and operated, family owned since 2001. There you see it if you're watching on the screen. What you can do to your garage floors nowadays changes the entire complexion of your home. I highly recommend you take a peek at it. If you've got a beautiful home or you have beautiful cars in your home and that garage floor just looks funky with oil stains and cobwebs everywhere and it's just gross, but the rest of your house is beautiful. If you get the flooring done in your garage, I promise you're going to love it. When you open that garage door and you see a beautiful flooring on your garage surface, it just changes the entire look and beauty of your home, especially if you're planning on staying, and even more if you're planning on selling. It definitely changes the complexion of your home. RAK, R-A-K, CustomCoatings.com. And again, as he likes to say, we install industrial strength, long-lasting coatings built to handle anything your home or business can throw at it. And from garages to commercial spaces, now commercial spaces, industrial spaces, you know what I'm talking about. From garages to commercial spaces, RAK Custom Coatings delivers tough, beautiful finishes that last. Where quality meets craftsmanship, you can reach them at 636-398-5040. 636-398-5040. If you're going to do something with your garage floors or industrial space, always think RAK Custom Coatings.com. 636-398-5040. 636-398-5040.
Looks like you get your bathroom too. That looks right there. Look at that. That looks so nice.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. I just saw that for the first time. I was like, man,
it's great for commercial places too, right? Where you have you come in and you're buying a commercial space and you're going to change out either the carpet or the flooring or what have you. Have them come in and just do industrial strength. It's not crazy expensive and it looks beautiful. I think it's the way of the future, quite honestly, because putting down tiling and putting down some of this stuff can get pricey. I think what he does there looks absolutely fantastic. I wonder if he does tile too. He probably
lasts longer too. My
buddy forever.
Yeah, my buddy's dad owned the business that basically makes the materials that they would use to make these floors.
Yep.
And yeah, the reason his business grew so much is because he came up with a special chemical that would make it last like 10 years longer or something. And so it's pretty incredible how long these floors last. You kind of do it and you might have to maybe do it one more time before you sell your business or pass it on to your kids. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Do you see that on the screen there? Can you read that to me, Isaiah, real fast?
Oh yeah, please check it out. Audio app would be awesome for those who drive. We do have Spotify too, just so you know.
That's from Class Act, just so you understand.
Yes, but it's not worth the money.
Listen, I'm just telling you what Class Act had to say.
If I'm making no money,
don't get mad at me, Isaiah. Don't get mad at me.
I'm just saying it's not worth the money. It would be literally putting a pile of money on the ground and lighting it on fire.
Not if more people listen.
Yes, it would be. I promise you. There would be no return on investment. There'd be nothing we could get.
You can invest like the old radio station did. You can invest within the app. If people turn it on, they could see advertising within the app.
Yeah, people don't want that.
All right.
Yeah. This is what I do, guys. I run millions of dollars in advertising. This is what I do.
With. He's Dr. No. Dr. No. Isaiah's Dr. No. Valvoline Express Care, Isaiah. Valvoline Express Care. Go to the website. You might be able to get, you can definitely get the locations of where we do coupons. And Tony Clark, great people. There you go. A little coupon right there for your oil change. If you don't have that sticker from Valvoline Express Care in your window, we just cannot be friends. It's just that simple. If I see you out and I don't see that sticker, I just have to assume that you went somewhere else to get your oil changes, which means you're not really a part of the Robb Carter Show, People's Lobby, Missouri, Isaiah Asher's world. You're just not involved. Valvoline-Express Care or Valvoline Express Care, 15 minutes from Beta on your way. He said, Rob, very simple. I've been in this business forever. And when I was in another organization, I recognized that the two biggest complaints that we have, or oil changes take too long, and or they feel like they're getting pressured to buy add-ons when they come in to get their oil changes. He says, not from us. 15 minutes from Beta on your way. No appointments, no sales pressure, all Valvoline branded products. If you want to do business with Tony Clark, he has locations in Warrenton, Cape Girardeau, St. Peters Parkway, Mid-Rivers Mall Drive, Troy, Illinois, and Lime Ferry Road. 15 minutes from Beta on your way. Valvoline Express Care. When it's time for an oil change, Tony Clark and Valvoline Express Care. That's where you go.
Wow, look at all those reviews.
Oh, yeah. Everybody loves
stars,
Tony.
baby.
Everybody loves Tony. It's because he's a good dude. That's where you should be getting your oil change. Nice and simple, right? If we all create the community where we do business with one another, the whole dream works. We expand. Everybody involved, even if you're just a listener, right? And you have something you want to get accomplished. You want to get a story out. You want to, you have your own business or something that you want to get out. We're going to work in a communal fashion. Listeners, advertisers, people in my life, people in Isaiah's life, we're going to put an organization together to where it's communal. We're all working together. And you're going to love it. It's going to change the way people think about doing business. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. Check them out on Facebook. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. This is the Robb Carter Show's general contractor. He sent me a text. He said, Rob, just a thought. One other area in my business other than storms is retail and new construction. I love the retail and new construction side of the business. We run on low overhead so we can pass the savings to our clients. Our prices cannot be beat. That's the line most people want to hear when they're getting a roof put on, right? Our prices cannot be beat. Even with that, we offer a Class 3 shingle, ridge vent, and complete installation guarantee, 5-year workmanship warranty on top of the manufacturer's warranty. He's been in business for over 30 years. Roofing, siding, decks, gutters, garage doors, custom exterior metal, residential or commercial, new construction, storm damage, free licensed inspections. And the thing that makes him different, again, as he was explaining the roofing business to me, he said, you have people knock on doors right after a storm. They look up and they say, we see some damage on your siding. We see some damage on your roof. We can work with your insurance companies to get that done. He says none of them know whether they're going to be able to work with the insurance companies. I do, because I'm a licensed insurance adjuster. I do both. He used to build homes, by the way, so he knows your home from top to bottom. And 30 years in business, somebody that you can trust. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. If you have any roofing, siding, deck, or gutter work done, garage doors, custom exterior metal, anything, ECS Roofing and Exteriors. You can reach them at 314-486-3567. 314-486-3567. You can check out their work at ECS Roofing and Exteriors on Facebook. And then finally,
super easy to remember their phone number. 67. The end. 67.
Dan, when I was looking at Real Talk, that was a big thing. Then he thought that was hilarious.
I know. I think it's funny too. I always thought it was funny when Dan was doing that. It cracks me up.
My next one is Advanced Wellness. Now, she sent me a text last night, and she said, Rob, you have to make a clarification, because when you say that the Israel is bombing Lebanon, they're bombing Catholics. She said, you got to recognize they're bombing Catholics. It's not just Christians. It's the Catholics that they're bombing. I put something on Facebook earlier. I said, how do Catholics feel about Israel bombing the Catholics in Lebanon with your money? I wonder how people feel about that, Isaiah. Do you think people care anymore? Is it just, are we so immune to it that we just don't care who we're bombing anymore?
Yeah.
It makes me wonder. AdvancedWellnessMed.com. My good friend Helen Galhat, as you see on the screen, she's a very spiritual woman. She likes to say, we assist in the divine healer. We assist the divine healer. Feel, think, look better, and live longer. That's what she likes to remind me of. Feel, think, look better, live longer. What advantage do you have with Helen Galhat and her services? Number one, she's not a part of any hospital administration. She is there to serve your interests. She is there to take care of you. She doesn't work within any boundaries. If she thinks you need to go to this specialist, she'll recommend that specialist. She's not in that vacuum of working with any particular hospital administration. She has the earliest cancer detection blood test on the market. So if you want to go find out whether you have you're pre-designed to have cancer. She's going to let you know if you have a history of cancer within your family. Good to go get that pre-screening test, the earliest cancer detection blood test in the business. The big thing for me, and the one that catches me the most, is my next door neighbor had dementia. She just recently passed away. And I loved her because she was allowing me to, her car, her family. Once we realized there was some dementia going on, we talked to her family. Everything was great, and we loved her. But to have a conversation with her, Isaiah, she would tell you something for 10 minutes and then start that same thing over repetitively over and over and over, and tell you the same story over and over. And I thought, I love her, but I can't do this. I can't have the same conversation over and over again. And I just wonder how many families are in this position with Alzheimer's patients. Alzheimer and dementia symptom reversal offered at advancedwellnessmed.com. If you know somebody or love somebody who's struggling with dementia or Alzheimer's and you haven't talked to Helen Gelhott, why not? What are you doing? All right, this is something that we can reverse symptoms. Helen Gelhott is the ticket. AdvancedWellnessMed.com. Cancer control, Alzheimer's and dementia. They have pre-screenings for strokes and heart attacks. I just think the best. AdvancedWellnessMed.com. We'll have Helen back on before too terribly long. What a great service, great practice, great people. AdvancedWellnessMed.com. AdvancedWellnessMed.com. 314-576-0094. 314-576-0094. All right, we got 11 minutes before we bring in Marcus Carey. Again, if you're just joining us, Marcus Carey is going to tell us everything that he knows about Thomas Massie, the election that Thomas Massie just had with no tile. Rich McQuay says no tile. Yep. Thanks, Rich. No tile for RAK Custom Coatings.com. No tile. He gets an extra plug. Smart. These people are smart. And this is just complete lies. Why did you put that on the screen, Isaiah?
I was dying. I was like, I can't wait to put that up.
Too funny. What's so everybody's agreeing with you, Isaiah? What's going on here? I agree, Isaiah. What is that? What's everybody agreeing with Isaiah?
Look what my wife said. Hey, now, John, back off my man.
Little do you know. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Isaiah. She was saying about the audio stuff. Yeah.
Okay, here's the Pretty Patriot says you can listen right now while you're running around. Just because it's on Rumble doesn't mean you have to watch it. I'm in my garden with the earbuds on most shows. I just think that a lot of people that are maybe I don't know. I just think a lot of people that older just think it's just
a generational thing.
Yeah, it's generational, right?
Yeah.
And I would think that a big part of my audience when I left the radio station was 65 and older, right? I would see it when I would go to events. I would have these people come up and like, oh, they want to take pictures and they want to talk to you and all this stuff. And it's very flattering. But I started to recognize that the listening audience at Real Talk Radio was 65 and older for the most part.
Most political audiences are going to be older. If you watch Fox
News. We're going to change that, though.
Yeah, if you watch Fox News, who are the commercials geared towards?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. AARP commercials constantly, pharmaceutical insurance commercials. You're right. It's all aimed at an older audience. We have to get young people to feel like their voices are being heard and that they can have true conversations. That's why when we did that, we put up yesterday the debate between the InfoWars people and those Republican activists that are always on Fox News. When they showed that debate, I thought, wow, this would be fantastic, right? Because now people, and I just wish that they weren't so mean-spirited at it.
Yeah.
I started to notice, especially Owen Schroyer, and maybe that's just a good way to get your point across is to be vitriolic. But I always think if somebody's willing to have the conversation with you, why beat them to death? If they're willing to have the conversation, right? Yeah. If they're willing to have the conversation with me, I might disagree with you, and I might give you 15 different reasons why I don't agree with your opinion. But I don't want to destroy people that are having a conversation with me. I want to say thank you for having this conversation because it ain't about me winning an argument.
Yeah,
it's about people that are listening to it, recognizing who has the better argument. Right? That's what it's all about. Is the people that are listening. Like and subscribe. Do it again, Isaiah.
like, share, and subscribe, and donate. Just because we have $30,000 doesn't mean we have a lot of money.
We don't have $30,000. Just make that clear.
We don't really.
No. And I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and she said, "Don't say how much money. Don't say how much money." And I said, "No. I want the audience to know that
we want to be transparent about it.
We want to be transparent about everything. We're always looking for money because we need $3 million. 30,000 is a drop in the bucket to what we need. We're building.
We need a video editor.
how much does the independent? I mean, just think if we had a video editor, which we need because we're going to have it to satisfy our sponsors at some point. We're going to have the video editor because that's really where you get your advertising from. That would cost us $3,000 to $5,000 a month just for that.
Yep.
Right. On top of the $10,000 in equipment that we bought,
plus website management, we got to pay someone.
Management. That's going to cost us money. Yep.
Yep.
It's
cost of all this gear. That's
and the travel.
When your microphone breaks, Lord willing it won't, but hey, microphone breaks, we got to buy a new microphone. We need more lights, right? We need a roadcaster. I need a stream deck here. I still haven't gotten one. There's all these things that are going to help level up the production or make it better.
Buy that stream deck whenever you want, though. We'll pay for that.
Oh, I'm just thinking.
You got to grab that though. You should get that.
I know I need to because it makes things a lot easier. I did pull up here. I forgot I was going to mention to you, just so you guys are aware. 2 million Christians or Catholics in Lebanon. 2 million. That's about 40% of the population.
Well, the leader of Lebanon is a Christian.
Yes.
What's interesting to me, and that's why I can't wait to talk to Marcus Carey about it, is I just don't understand why we are allowing AIPAC to have such an influence on our political process in this country. I just don't understand it. Yeah. And maybe I'm missing it. Maybe he can answer those questions for me, but I'm very curious about it. Can we get just one thing out of the way before we get into, because we're going to talk a lot about Israel, Thomas Massie, the boomer and millennial divide. We're going to talk about things that I think are very interesting to talk about. But I want to start with these AI data centers because that seems to be the big topic. You put something out on social media that had close to 500,000 views by now, I guess, Isaiah?
Yep.
Right. And you have a very small footprint on maybe 1,000 followers.
Yeah, 1 point, I think like 1,600 followers.
Right. So it took off big. Same thing happened with People's Lobby Mo. We posted there. It was I think it's the biggest post that we've ever had because it's about AI data centers. And I would just ask the people that are pro AI data center, we understand the benefits of AI. We get it. We use it. We're not adverse to AI. You're framing an argument that we're not making. We're saying there are portions of AI that become very totalitarian in the wrong hands. You have not protected us. You've already stripped away the Fourth Amendment, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. Why would we trust you to have a total surveillance system with flock cameras, warrantless searches, AI data centers, the Patriot Act, kill switches on our cars? Why would we allow you to have this much power when you haven't given us any protections yet? Even the protections we do have under the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, you guys wipe your tail with it. You don't even pay attention to it. You don't have the right to surveil me without a warrant. You don't have a right to sell all of my information. You do because you've made Facebook and X and all these private industries, which everybody with a free-thinking brain knows that they're really not. They're not. They're aligned with our government. So is Palantir. They are aligned with our government. They're one and the same. Just because one says it's private doesn't mean that it is private. It's not private. They share your information. They go, Rob, how would they even work you're not paying them, it's a free service so they can share your information. Well, then we have to do it a different way. Maybe it should be by subscription. Maybe if we did by subscription, it'd be better. Because I don't want you sharing my information. You have made this the public square. This is the only way we can communicate. I can't go, hey, Steve Ducey over there on Fox News, I want to be on tomorrow. I got something to say. That's not going to happen. So the only way we have to communicate is through these services. So if this is the only way to communicate is through these services, then I don't want you selling my data to everybody. I don't think that's a good trade-off. I think we're now starting to recognize it's a very bad trade-off. This came out about AI data centers. This is my position. It's clip number 12, Isaiah, if you get that ready for us. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, somebody just posted on Facebook within the last couple of days, and it listed, somebody goes, you don't even know what AI centers do. And it listed all of the benefits. And I got right down in the middle of it and said surveillance, right? And it said storage, surveillance, and this, and that, and the other. And I just cut that out. And I said, this is the part, the 95% that you put in there that is so fantastic. This is the part that we're worried about. Okay.
Isn't that what you voted for in 2024, Rob? Right.
I always say it's just the easy to understand it for the people that can't just kind of rationalize it. So some of the engineers think in, black and white numbers. Just imagine a jar of M&Ms in the middle of your table, and you love M&Ms, but 3 of the M&Ms are poison. Do you eat the M&Ms? No, you don't eat the M&Ms. And why don't you eat the M&Ms? Because there's poison in there. There's something that's going to kill you. AI data centers are exactly that. 97 of the 100 M&Ms are going to be delicious, but the 3 that you get that are poisonous are going to destroy your life. That is what we're worried about. We don't want to be China. We're in a race against a totalitarian state to be more totalitarian in America. This is the argument that's being made by the AI data center advocates, and I don't understand it. They won't have a conversation with me, so I can't understand where they're coming from. They avoid me at all costs. I'd like to have the conversation with them, but for some reason they don't want to have it. Clip number 12, Isaiah.
Let's do it.
Big data centers, those are basically to crunch numbers for mass surveillance.
Yeah.
All of this agenda, monitoring you when you're out in public, where your car goes, your location, through your personal mobile devices, through your healthcare encounters, your travel records, your banking, all of these sectors, it's all going to be ultimately tied to programmable digital currency. And that means they could do a variety of things to essentially have control over the economy, but they can also control you for other goals rather than just the economy. I'm not trying to say that this is a foregone conclusion. If we are aware of this and resist it and speak out against it, the whole plan could be abandoned.
That's how I see it. He shares my opinion, Isaiah. Is that how you see it? I just want to push back against it. And I think it's the right of all Americans to push back against things that they don't understand or they don't want. I had Kirk Hilsinger said, you're against this, you're against that. I said, I'm not against AI data centers. I'm not against them. I don't know anything about them. And that's the point. I don't want a $500 billion investment that ensures surveillance of me and my family everywhere I go for the rest of my life and for generations to follow without a public conversation as to the pros and the cons. Is that not fair, Isaiah?
I think that's fair. And
I think that's fair.
I was just thinking about that. You remember that post you sent me last night that broke everything down
Yes.
for the Larry Fink conversation? And they're using the legal, which you and I agree, Rob, it's kind of crazy that they can do this, but they're using their legal system of finances to tap into 401ks, pensions, and brokerage accounts to fund this AI infrastructure. So
isn't it beautiful? Using your money behind your back that you know nothing about legally to fund a surveillance system for the people that are already surveilling you the best way they know how. Right now, they're already doing the best they can. Now they want to do it, and they want to store it, and they want it to be perpetual in perpetuity forever so that your government can spy and big corporations and the big tech companies can spy on you from now until forever. And you can't spy on them. That's the difference, Isaiah. You don't get to spy on them. They get to spy on you. That doesn't feel like a fair trade-off. My government gets to spy on me, and I don't get to spy on them. I can't even watch the Missouri government Senate live stream because they don't want that. They don't want me watching live stream, and yet they want me surveilled 24/7, and they're going to vote on it, tell me how great it is for me.
Or if you're Jen Olson and you go to try to confront your chairwoman of a committee, and she tells you that she expects respect, right? What are you talking about?
I know, it's nuts. Let's bring in Marcus Carey.
Let's do it.
All right. Joining us now is Marcus Carey. I sent out a message on social media and I said, Marcus, I'd like to debate you about this. He immediately responded. There's his handsome face, Marcus Carey. Can we hear him yet? I don't think we can.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. All right.
All right, great.
I wanted to welcome you to the show, number one. And number two, thank you. Most people don't say yes because I always ask for interviews and I always ask for conversations with people. Sometimes if I disagree with them, it's even a better interview because as we talked about yesterday, I find you a perfect person for me. Right, a perfect person in the sense that you
bring my wife in and let her hear that.
Well, exactly. I think we disagree on some certain things, but I think that you're the perfect person because you have an opinion. You want to share it with people. As we said yesterday, I said we don't have to hate each other because we disagree, right? We don't have. And you go, well, you're an adult.
Of course,
the first thing you said to me, and I said, I know, but this new generation, if you disagree, everything has to turn into a fight, and that's coming from multiple. I'm just talking about this generation, meaning this period of time in our world. Tell me about your background. You're an attorney. You're heavy into Kentucky politics. You did was it a deposition of Cynthia West? That's what Laura Loomer said. Or was it just a conversation to get that information out?
Well, it was a conversation, but as having been a lawyer for 46 years, that's my method of getting to the truth is asking direct questions under oath where they answer the questions as I ask them. We record it from beginning to end with no edits. And I thought it was the most authentic way to get her story out. So I guess you could call it a deposition, even though it wasn't really a part of any official proceeding whatsoever. But, not only have I been a lawyer for 46 years, I want to say I've been a country lawyer. I got out of law school and went to my hometown and set up a little shop. I probably did about 80% of my work over my career for free because most of the people that came to me had already been rejected by a lot of other law firms. They had nowhere else to go, but they had problems that needed some attention, and they found their way to my doorstep. So I never said no for a long, long time. Had the same secretary, just the two of us she was with me for over 40 years. So just kind of a small practice, but tried to be a problem solver for the people in my community, taking whatever it was that was the biggest problem in their life and then helping them find out what the real problem was, because most of them walked in with one problem and then turned out that wasn't really the problem. But we worked through it and we helped a lot of people along the way. But I didn't go down the path most lawyers do. I wasn't in a firm. I wasn't trying to make a lot of money. I know that sounds crazy, counterintuitive. People wouldn't think you'd go to law school and become a lawyer not trying to make money. Obviously, I wanted to feed my family, but I moved my family to a little remote farm as far away from the city as we could get. In fact, if you look at a map, draw a line between Cincinnati, Louisville, and Lexington, if you get to the point where all those lines are as far away as they can possibly get, that's where we moved to. And we were homesteaders. We raised all our own food, raised our own beef, slaughtered and butchered hogs, hunted wild game, and raised all our own vegetables, and just turned an overgrown old farm into a beautiful little park. And we spent our lives there, raised our kids there, and had a lot of kids down. So my background is varied, but I always had a passion for politics. And I understood from a very early age that it was something that we couldn't just treat as a sport or a way to make money, that this was a country that was supposed to be self-governed. And that meant that we had to get up off of our butts and govern ourselves. We had to do something. And I became involved in politics very early. When I was in my teens, there were no Republicans anywhere to be found in public office. The state was controlled top to bottom by Democrats. And realistically, I don't know that we had any different viewpoints. It's just that people who were registered Republican for whatever reason didn't have a voice. And my goal in the beginning was just to try to give people a voice. And so I became involved in Republican politics in my community. And ultimately, I ended up being kind of the go-to guy a long, long time ago in the 80s. If you wanted to be elected to Republican office, you came through my doorway and we helped you get elected. And over time, we were able to start electing one after another Republicans to office. We broke the ice. Then I went out into the district, the 4th district, where Thomas Massie just ran. Went out into the 4th district with the blessing of my then favorite congressman and friend, Jim Bunning. And we began building Republican organizations throughout the 4th district where none had ever existed before. So I've been involved in it for a long, long time. And it's something I just can't get out of my blood because I'm a red-blooded American. And being an American means you need to be involved in politics because this is our government and it belongs to us. We run it. We're the boss. They work for us. And if we don't see it that way, and if they don't see it that way, then somebody's not doing their job.
Amen. I see the same. Jim Bunning, the pitcher, Jim Bunning?
Absolutely.
Wow. Forgot about Jim Bunning.
We got to throw a
baseball fan
in 2 leagues. Yep.
Yeah. All right. I got to ask you a couple questions. Let's start with Thomas Massie, because I think my audience, we have been proponents of Thomas Massie in the sense of the way he votes. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm a member of the John Birch Society. We used to have the John Birch Society people on our show all the time. I would say who votes most consistently with the Constitution, and they would always say Thomas Massie. So that's where we're at. I don't know whether Thomas Massie is a good guy or a bad guy, or he's voting in the best interest of his district. That I can't tell you. But I like the idea that he votes along with the Constitution. You told me yesterday you were not a big fan of Thomas Massie for multiple different reasons. Can you kind of walk through where you disagree with Thomas Massie?
Yeah, well, I was invited to meet him before he ever ran for office, a group of people in Northern Kentucky who were then, I would say, probably Tea Party people. I mean, the environment was, we were still in the middle of the Obama era, and the Tea Party was ascending, and they weren't disruptors so much as they were people that thought there was a better path forward. And we were looking for somebody that was a non-traditionalist to fill that bill, to be that person, to represent us in Congress and not just go vote with everybody. And he came along at exactly the right time. And I was invited to meet with him with a group of people who are, I would say they were probably more John Birchers, probably more Ron Paul people, more that wing of the party. And when I got to meet with him, in fact, he called me before the meeting and we had a nice conversation on the phone. He said, I think we've got a lot in common. We both live on farms. And I was anxious to meet him. And I thought he was a great guy. I really did. And we sat in a meeting room with about, I don't know, maybe 10 people. And they all asked him a lot of questions about his farm and his off-grid home and his time at MIT and his patents and all this stuff. And it was a very pleasant conversation. But I understood that we were actually interviewing somebody to be our representative. I mean, that guy has to work for us. So this was like a job interview to me. And even though it was very friendly and his stories were engaging and he seemed like a wonderful personality and it seemed like he was exactly the right thing for the right time. I knew that everybody in the room was a right to life person. Just they were dyed in the wool, right to life. And nobody asked him a single question. So I just said, well, look, before we leave, if you don't mind, I turned to him and I said, how do you feel about right to life? And I remember he looked around the room and made eye contact with everybody but me for some reason. I don't know. Maybe he knew them better. But he told a wonderful story about how he was never really sure about that for a long time until he saw the birth of his daughter and told this beautiful story about his daughter being born. But I'm a lawyer. I've cross-examined some of the most difficult witnesses in the country. And I know what I was looking at. The guy dodged the question. He didn't answer the question. If you're right to life, if you're staunchly right to life and you've been through those battles before, you know the answer to that question. How do you feel about right to life? I believe that life begins at conception and ends at natural death. That's says it pretty simplistically, but straightforward. He didn't do that. He dodged. So I thought, well, wait a minute. He dodged the first part. Let me ask him about the second part of right to life. So I said, how do you feel about euthanasia? And you got to remember at this time, there was a great deal of discussion about euthanasia in the news, right? I mean, Holland and foreign countries were euthanizing older people. We had just come through that Dr. Kevorkian era not too long before that. I mean, it was still in the top of the news. So I said, how do you feel about euthanasia? And this time he looked right at me and he smiled from ear to ear. And he said, well, we kill dogs at the pound every month, don't we? I looked around the room and everybody's mouth was open, or most of them. And many of them still remember it. I've asked them ever since, never forget that moment. And to me at that point, I realized that I was dealing with a different kind of guy, a guy who was willing to smile and dodge a question that was very important to everybody in the room. And what got down to an issue that was very important to me, the respect for our elders, the respect for wisdom, the respect for memory. I thought that was a bad answer. So I watched him carefully for a long time after that. And quite frankly, I never have been a fan. I understand where people are coming from when they say he's a constitutionalist and stands on liberty, stands on principles, and so on and so forth. But in reality, I think that when you go to Washington, D.C., you go as either a leader, who's the president, who's elected by the only person elected by the entire country, or you go as a representative, which means you go as a servant. And your boss are the constituents back home. So instead of trying to find out what the majority of the people in his district wanted, he tended to establish himself as standing alone on an island, voting for principles and things that appealed to the people who helped him get in office. Not a bad idea politically, but in my mind, it's a great departure from being a representative. If you don't vote the way the people of your district want, then you're probably not doing your job. And he kept his job for a long time. And he promised early on he was only going to be there 2 or 3 terms and signed the term limits pledge and all of that other stuff. But he just couldn't seem to step away. And then he got beat. And according to the news, he's filed to run again. So he still can't step away. So instead of a guy who went to be a servant, he went to be a guy who created a career out of it. And he's not willing to let go yet. I think that pretty much explains how I feel about Thomas Massie.
Interesting. Can I just ask you a quick question, just your opinion? Because you made mention of something that's really big going on in Missouri right now, and it's the abortion issue. In Missouri, when Donald Trump overturned Roe v. Wade and sent it back to the states, we had law in Missouri that basically said life begins at conception. There is no abortion for any reason whatsoever. And we had a supermajority of Republicans. They had the House, they had the Senate, they had all the statewide positions, and the governor, lieutenant, they had everything they wanted. And they had to pass something called initiative petition reform in order to keep Missouri as an anti-abortion, an abolishment of abortion state. They didn't do it. They gave the bill to a woman named Mary Elizabeth Coleman. She's a Democrat, originally a Democrat from Texas is the way I understand it. And she sabotaged her own bill, sent it back to the states. All the money came flowing in. They overturned it. Now Missouri has the most pro-abortion stance in the world. I mean, I think you can have an abortion up until you're like 25 years old in the state of Missouri now. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen with a Republican supermajority. So now what they're coming back with is Amendment 3, and we have the abortion people split amongst it. I'd be curious your position, because I kind of think if you're anti-abortion, you're pretty much anti-abortion. What they say in Missouri A3 is fetal anomalies, the life of the mother. If you're raped, that you can have an abortion, but that's going to go into our Constitution. And the rape one is the one that catches my attention, because I think the people that are pro-choice, some of them are just, it's like a religion to them. So you can go in and say that you were raped, no questions asked. You just go and say, I was raped. Nobody's going to ask you by who, what happened. There's no police report. There's no nothing. And Planned Parenthood's going to give you an abortion. These will be the new laws that the Republican Party and the Republican leadership in the state of Missouri is fighting for. And the people that are fighting against it say, wait a minute, abortion's abortion. We don't want anything enshrined into our Constitution that gives constitutional rights for abortion under these set of circumstances. What would be your take on that? Just as if you were a voting person in the state of Missouri, I'm curious because it's a big issue in the state of Missouri right now.
Well, I'll say it again. I'm pro-life. I'm not anti anything. I'm pro-life, and I'm pro-life for one reason. And I think one of the discussions that I think we have to have is, what are the founding principles of our country? I mean, when we formed this country, the very first words that were spoken are that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. And the first one that was mentioned was the right to life. In other words, life doesn't belong to us. Life is not ours to use and abuse. Other people's lives are not under our control. We recognize that God gave all of us life. And we formed a nation to protect that, to protect the lives of everyone. Now, the question that continually gets raised is, well, it's just a fetus. Well, when you use words to change the meaning of something in people's minds, it makes it easier for them to see it as not a life. If you come up with reasons why, well, we can terminate that life, well, of course we can. We have the death penalty. We engage in war. We kill people. We recognize the right to self-defense. I mean, we have carved out exceptions to when a human being can take a life. But in most instances, there's some due process involved. We don't go to war unless the president, through certain powers granted him by the Constitution, initiates a battle, or Congress declares a war. We don't get to just shoot people and claim self-defense. There's a process that tests that. And you don't get the death penalty unless you've exhausted all of your appellate remedies. I mean, we try to protect that life all the way up until the last minute. So I think that the one thing that bothers me the most about the concept that abortion at will or abortion on a basis of an excuse is justifiable is, first and foremost, it violates our first recognized right that we get from God, and that is the right to life, period. That right there is enough for me.
I couldn't agree more.
The second thing is, if somebody wants to carve out an exception and say, well, we don't really think that a baby who's just been conceived is a life, and we think we can make an argument why it would be better to kill that baby, I just have to ask, as a lawyer, what due process do we give to that baby before we kill it? I mean, who represents that baby? Does mom go to court and say, I want to petition the court for permission to kill my baby? And the court looks at it and makes a determination. Where are the protections for the child? They aren't there. So people don't want to give that life the same protection we would give to a murderer or a rapist or somebody who's trying to shoot you in your own home. We don't give anybody any protections at that point. And yet, science, through very specialized microscopes and ways of watching the actual point of conception, notice that at the point of conception, there's a flash of light. And God said, I am the light. So I think that we have to recognize we're either going to say that life begins at conception or it begins somewhere else. And we need to fix that point, because as long as life begins at conception, that baby is entitled to as much due process as you and me.
Yeah, I see it the same way, because you made a good point. If a baby is conceived out of rape, the rapist is not going to get the death penalty. That person is going to go to prison, but they're not going to
get a court hearing.
They're not going to get the death penalty, but the person that they created, who's innocent, is killed because of the rapist who's going to prison. Is odd thinking when you really think about it. And as a young person, I've made this commentary many times, Mr. Carey. I didn't see it that way. I was a young kid. I got caught up in the way the world worked, and it's just the way it was. I never even put much into it. And as I've gotten older, I've thought, man, what is just a crazy way to think, because propaganda and, conditions and your environment change sometimes the way you think through things. But I agree with you 100% right now. I think we're on the exact same page. I want to play a quick video for you, if you don't mind, because I think you made a good point about Thomas Massie. And that is why I say I agree that he votes with the Constitution, but I don't know these people. You know him. You met him early on. you have a better insight to who Thomas Massie is. But I found this interesting, Isaiah. It's clip number 1. I'd like to get your response to this because he did just recently come out and he said that he is keeping his money available to him that he's raised through these donations because he might run for another nationwide political office. I don't know if he's running for Senate. I think you think he's probably running for Senate, but I didn't see that anywhere. It could be president for all I know. But he did say this when he was on the campaign trail just recently. Clip number 1, Isaiah, check this out.
To get past May 19th. If I lose on May 19th, I am not doing any more government ever. I'm not running for president, not running for governor. It's a sign from God or the people or both that I should go back to the farm. But if I do win, I would consider that seat before I would consider running for Senate or president.
So he made a declarative statement that if he lost, he was not going to run for any more office. And then within a few days, he's now keeping his money and he's opening the door to run for higher office. Now, that may not mean much to most political people. I just think politics is backwards nowadays. I watch every word that I say when I'm doing a radio show. And when I do get something wrong, I ask for people to correct me. As a politician, as somebody who's asking for your money and for your vote for an election, I'm not going to go out there and do something absolutely contrary to what I just promised. I just couldn't do it. I don't know how these politicians get away with it. He tells an audience that he's asking, I would assume, for money and support, that this is it. If I don't win, I'm not running for higher office. And just like we just showed, just within 3 days, that position has changed. What's your take on that? Is that a character issue for you? How would you see that? Is that just normal politics? Am I looking at it wrong? How do you see it?
Well, it's a character issue. It's a trustworthiness issue. It's an honesty issue. And my mother told me I did something wrong when I was 3 years old. I bit a little girl. I don't know why kids bite people, but I really liked this little girl and she was going home and I didn't want her to go home. And for some reason I bit her. And my mother said, "Did you bite that little girl?" And I looked at my mom and I said, "No." And my mom cried. And she said, "I never thought you would lie to me." And I never forgot that. My mom and dad told me that if anybody ever lies to you, you can never trust anything else they say, because that means they're capable of lying. And if they're good at it, you might not ever know when they're lying. Go back to the very beginning, the comment about euthanasia that Thomas Massie made to me. I filed as a de minimis candidate in that race in 2012. That means I wasn't trying to win. I promised the government I wouldn't raise enough money or spend enough money to try to win, but I wanted to be on the debate stage and I wanted to be in some of these places so that I was able to ask questions with a microphone instead of from out in the audience. And we were on a show on KET, which is Kentucky Educational Television out of Lexington. The host or the moderator was a guy named Bill Goodman, a great guy. And the right to life issue came up. And when it did, I mentioned that conversation. And when I asked him, "How do you feel about euthanasia?" And he said, "We kill dogs at the pound every month, don't we?" And Bill Goodman appeared even shocked a little bit. He was off camera, but I could see it. He looked at Thomas Massie, said, "Did you say that?" And Thomas Massie said, "No, I didn't say that." Well, of course he did. I have an affidavit from some of the witnesses. I have other witnesses who would testify to it. So he lied. He signed a pledge that he wasn't going to run for more than whatever it was, 2 or 3 terms. He also promised during the campaign that he wasn't going to take the pension. So, from the very beginning, I had trust issues with regard to what he said. And I watched him, and he's very skillful. He's very, very good at what he does. But there you pointed it out again. Just a few days ago, he said, if he loses, he's not running for anything. And next thing we know, he's filed FEC forms to allow him to raise and spend money toward what? Toward what? He's going to get money from people and then use it for what? Hotel rooms, trips, flights home, visits with friends, calling it campaign activities. Where will that money go? How will it be used? And I have a trust issue. I mean, all the way back from the very beginning, all the way to this day. And you just put a punctuation point on it for me.
Very interesting, because if somebody said, can people change their mind? Here's the way I look at that, and I understand where people are coming from, right? I try to understand people's point of view. For me, it wouldn't be changing your mind, because we're talking about something that happened within the last 30 days, right? So you have to,
Right.
You make a declarative statement that you're not going to take any money if you lose. You already know you're in a dead heat. You know that there's a possibility that you're going to lose. And then a few days after, you're now talking about running for higher office. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he can't change his mind. I just think that when you're a politician, you have to be very careful not to make declarative statements if that's not really where your heart is at. If your heart's not in that statement, and right, your heart's not in it.
Isn't that exactly what we all want?
Yes.
Politicians who do tell us the truth and go do what we want. Isn't that what we want?
That's what we need. We need that to begin to take shape in this country, because right now, are you familiar? Can I talk politics with you just in general? Is that okay?
You can, but don't test me too much on Missouri now.
No, I won't touch on Missouri. I was just curious your opinion on that one, and you share the same opinion as I do. Do you know what the Smith Modernization Act is? Are you aware of this? Because Thomas Massie is one of the few people that has made a statement that we need to overturn the Smith Modernization Act. And I talked about it from the very inception of this particular law.
I read about it. Does that have to tell me what it is? So I think I do, but I don't make a fool out of myself.
No worries. I'll kind of lay it out for you. So the Smith Munt Act was passed right after World War II because the legislator started to recognize that the Nazi Party could basically change the perceptions of their people so much that they thought that the other people were the aggressors and they were always the one defending the peace. So they put forth a Smith-Munt Act, which said there would be no such thing as domestic propaganda perpetrated by the Board of Governors and or the United States government. In 2012, 2013, well, I think it was 2013, under the Obama administration, with the help of Republicans, they overturned it and renamed it the Smith-Munt Modernization Act, which allowed for domestic propaganda. I always play a clip on the show of Barack Obama saying, propaganda isn't about lying to you. It's about filling the public airwaves with so much information, nobody knows what to believe. And I think that's kind of where we're at. I think most Americans really don't know what's going on in the world anymore because there's so much information coming out from so many different places that they just throw their hands up and go, what's for dinner, honey? I don't know what's happening anymore. And I question whether so Josh Hawley in the state of Missouri, we had fans of our show go out and get him. They got it on video for me, so I got to watch it. I'm a witness to it. And they said, tell us about the Smith Modernization Act. Will you put some, what do you think of it? And he said, get it to my staff. I'll answer and he never did. We asked Eric Schmidt, he's the other senator from Missouri, on the radio show. He didn't answer it. Nobody wants to answer the question. And the only one pushing back on it is Senator Mike Lee from Utah and Thomas Massie that I can find in the U.S. Congress. But it seems like a no-brainer for the Republican Party. Why would the Republican Party not want to answer that question? I always look at the Republican Party as being on the side of liberty and small government and individual liberties and rights. If you have domestic propaganda aimed at the American citizens and we're fighting wars that nobody seems to really understand, that doesn't seem like a good calculation for me as an American citizen. Maybe it's good for government, but it's not. Maybe it's good for the military, but it doesn't seem to be good for me. What is your take? Just if that's the understanding, if I'm getting that right, what would your take be on that?
I think the biggest problem most of us have, and I think this is not just my generation, but it may be even more so in the 20 to 30-year-olds, they don't know what to believe. They believe that everything that we've been told is a lie, that everything we're hearing from government is a fraud. They see government as being a place where people go and get rich from nothing. They see example after example of insider trading. They see people who are bought and paid for by major money groups who are putting together sales pitches that convince people that, well, this is good for babies or this is good for you, when in reality, it's just, Peter Thiel, in fact, wrote about this. Most of the legislation that's being passed is being passed by people who want to thwart the ability of young people to prosper. They want to take away prosperity and consolidate it in the top few. And when you think about it, that resembles, quite frankly, the way communist nations work. They have somebody in power. They surround themselves with other people who help them all stay in power. They get all the riches and everybody else works themselves to death in the rice paddies. I think that the biggest problem we have is not propaganda, is finding the right people to run for office. And there you have the biggest problem of all, and that is they've created this moat of boiling oil around themselves, and nobody dares to cross it. The vitriol, the anger, the slander, just the absolute hatred that exists in politics. Most good people go, I don't want to do that. For that job, I don't want to do that. So the people who are there for themselves or there to enrich themselves or enrich their friends or enrich their supporters, all of them will say and do anything to hang on to power. And if they have control of the airwaves, thank God for people like you, and thank God for independent voices, because without that, we'd have 3 channels of propagandists every night telling us what to think. I think that we have to find better ways to expose what's really going on. I think that the younger generation sees it better than we do. I think we sense it, but we just kind of grew up thinking that we could trust our government.
Right.
And ultimately, because of the fact that they made it very difficult for good people to run, and the fact that they've been there so long and they become household names and they're entrenched and they got plenty of money and they just never want to leave, we're stuck with them. And trying to figure out how to get rid of them is a problem for most people. It's not a problem for me. I'm doing it for 50 years. You find good people, you support them, you make sure they understand what their role is going to be. You don't elect people who tell you their role is going to be a representative and then they go off and try and build a career for themselves. There's a way to do it, but it's going to take all of us. And it's not going to be just boomers. It's not just going to be millennials or Gen X or Gen Y. It's going to be the youngest people in the country. And we have to do it together. We have to understand we have a common interest to get rid of corruption and grift and graft in our government and put better people in office. We can't sit back and complain about the people who are there and hope that we're going to make them do something different. They're not. They have to go. We have to clean house. Every 2 years, we elect an entire new House of Representatives. Not a penny's worth of spending, not a penny's worth of taxes can start anywhere else but there. You want to control the country? Clean house, fresh legs, new blood. That's the way we do it. That was the way it was intended to be. Go up there like you go in the military, serve 4 years, come home to your farm, to your business, to your family, let somebody else go up and do it. But these career politicians and the entrenched environment they live in, gotta go.
What do you think of the Citizens United decision? Because one of the things that I think needs to be addressed is the money in politics. Now that I'm in this game just a little bit and I see how it works, it's been about 5 years that I really paid attention to state and local politics, and the amount of money that comes into it's credible. We have this outfit called Act for Missouri that's kind of aligned with my show, aligned with a 501c4 that I have, and we just went through. They put it on the monitor and they show how much money is coming in for all of the reps. And you can kind of see the reps, like the ones that are there for the right reasons, that never get a say-so, they're following the Constitution. That particular person had $5,000 in donations. Then you go up to the Speaker of the House, John Patterson, and he's getting, $1.5 million. You go to the leader of the Democrats, he's getting $2 million. You're like, well, wait a minute. You can kind of see that the power is with the Speaker and the Senate Pro Tem. That's where all the money's going because they're the ones making all the decisions. And one of the problems I have with trying to vote our way out of this in the state of Missouri, and you can tell me if it's like this in Kentucky, the Speaker of the House has already been chosen and he hasn't even been elected. In Missouri, the next Speaker of the House is going to be a guy named Alex Riley, who hasn't even won his most recent election. They've already chosen him. So when the next people come in, they're going to have Alex Riley as the Speaker of the House. He's the gatekeeper for all for all legislation. And I keep thinking to myself, well, why do we need the rest of them? If he doesn't like any legislation that you're putting forth, and they've already given him millions of dollars to kind of control the money and the contracts in the state of Missouri, how do we fix that situation? Because I go to every single Republican in the state of Missouri and go, isn't this your problem? Is that you've consolidated all the power at the top and nobody really has a say-so in anything that they want to do, and you guys use that as an excuse for not getting anything done? And they go, Rob, and they never answer the question. It feels like you can't vote your way out of it for multiple reasons. I don't even know if I trust the elections in many of these places. But number two, the parties have consolidated power in many of these states with one person, just one. But like Mike Johnson controls all the legislation in Washington, D.C. That's why if you don't get anything done, they just go, I couldn't get it past Mike Johnson. He wouldn't take it up. Don't you think it's a process issue, Mr. Carey? I think the process.
There is a process issue within the institutions. Okay. But they decide on the process. But if the people who are deciding on the process are continuing the process, and we, the people back home, see a problem with the process, it doesn't do any good. And I'm not trying to knock down your discussion. I think it's a very important point. But the way you fix that isn't by yelling at the people who are up there, who aren't going to leave, to change the process that they're comfortable with, or standing outside the Congress like some of the naysayers and just saying, I'm for a different way. I'm for a different way. You've got to figure out how to get it done. You just can't claim that I want to get it done and then not do anything. We have to send better people. That's the solution. You can't do it from the inside with the people who are there. They're all part of the same system. They have to go.
What do you think of elections? I want to play a clip for you. I want you to respond to a couple of things, just because I think you're I think you're like me. You have an opinion. You've been around us a long time, and I think that the idea that we can bounce it back and forth is a really good thing. So I want to get your clip number 6, Isaiah. This is James Woolsey, used to be CIA director. He went on with Laura Ingraham on Fox News. And I really, really got motivated in 2020 because I did not believe that Joe Biden, I watched these elections. I was on the Donald Trump campaign. I watched this all go down, and I thought, there is no way this man got 81 million votes. There's no energy for him. A lot of politics is energy, right? Energy and money. And I just didn't see how he could possibly get 81 million votes. So when I started to hear Donald Trump refute the elections, when I saw Rudy Giuliani, I watched every bit of it multiple times. Rudy Giuliani and Jen Ellis crisscrossed the nation and said that electronic voting systems were partially the cause of the election being stolen in 2020. And I buy into that. I'm one of those people that believes that. You had Tulsi Gabbard stand in the Oval Office and tell Donald Trump the same thing. She said, these electronic voting systems are stealing elections. Here is one of the problems I see in the country, but I want to get your opinion on it. This is James Woolsey on Fox News. Do we get clip 6? You're showing the ice cream eating, Isaiah.
Oh, no, I'm ready. That was just for comedic relief.
Oh. All right, Mr. Carey, clip number 6. This is James Woolsey talking about stealing elections, the CIA stealing elections. Clip number 6.
Have we ever tried to meddle in other countries' elections?
Oh, probably, but it was for the good of the system in order to avoid the communists from taking over. For example, in Europe, in 47, 48, 49, the Greeks and the Italians, we
don't do that now, though. We don't mess around other people's elections, Joe?
Only for a very good cause.
Can you do that? Do a Vine video on a former CIA director.
Only for a very good cause in the interests of democracy.
All right, thanks for being here. It's always great to see you.
See, when I see that kind of stuff, to me, it just reeks of arrogance, right? So you're going to have elections that are stolen. We think they're stolen in this country. We are complaining about China stealing the elections in this country. Venezuela might be involved. Serbia might be involved. And you have the CIA director go on Fox News and say, are you stealing elections? And he goes, implying that we do. Don't you think that it's very possible that if we don't get our elections in order in this country, that you're always going to have this conflict? Nancy Pelosi just said that Donald Trump plans to steal the elections. I just played that clip a week ago. She said he plans to steal the elections through the machines. Now, again, right or wrong, if Donald Trump says the elections are stolen through the machines in 2020, we've done nothing to change that. Nothing. And I watched every ounce of Rudy Giuliani and Jen Ellis crisscross this country and say they were stolen through the machines. Wouldn't we make some effort to get rid of the machines? I mean, we're trying to. In St. Charles County, we've got a woman named Jen Olson who's hand counting paper ballots only. I just met with Chris Gleason. He's running for Senate in Florida. He said hand counting paper ballots only. But when I bring this to the attention of the Missouri Senate and the Missouri House reps in the Republican Party, in one ear and out the other, like they didn't even hear you. They're mad at you for even bringing it up. And I go, why not? I mean, it doesn't matter whether they're being manipulated. What matters is that people don't have confidence in the system. It is your job to make sure we have confidence in the system. Let's do something about it. And they basically tell me to take a hike and go home and leave them alone.
Did you see Laura Ingraham when he told
her?
Right? She just laughed like, we all know. Wait a minute.
I agree.
What? You're a journalist and you're just laughing at all. Why don't you just poke each other in the ribs and talk about how
I agree. I see it the same way.
Just absolutely unforgivable. Look, I think we know now there's evidence that Tulsi came up with and others that pretty well demonstrate that in some places there were excess ballots that were illegitimate ballots that were counted that helped to put Joe Biden over. We know that. I also think that the machines have been proven to be, seems to me in a number of court cases, that there's access to the machines remotely through internet and satellite and other ways. Those are all state controlled things though. And I think the SAVE Act is a huge issue. I think that's a good first step. Kentucky, I might add, which is, this week, for example, Thomas Massie went out talking about how he lost the election to the boomers who came out in force because they were tricked by one AI ad showing him walking into a motel room with a couple of other legislators. To think that anybody would be tricked by one AI ad is kind of sick, really, to think that the people that you live with and people in your community are that dumb, to call them that dumb.
Right.
But in addition, he went on and said that, I got so many votes from the younger people. I got 70% of this demographic. Kentucky doesn't keep track of who votes.
I saw your post. I read your post this morning. They don't even possibly know. Yeah.
No, that's not true. So, but Kentucky does have a very secure system. We use paper ballots. Very simple. You walk in, you register, you show your driver's license, you sign your name. Somebody has to recognize you. Then you walk over and you pick up your ballot. You take it to a secure location. You mark the boxes for who you want. It gets scanned through a machine. And if somebody says, hey, wait, whoa, I don't think that vote is right. If the machine tabulated it wrong, you still have the paper ballots to fall back on. I think that's the way to go. I think you vote on election day. I think you vote with paper ballots. Somebody said, oh, well, in this Massie race, he got beat on the mail-in ballots. We don't have mail-in ballots. We have absentee ballots. To get one, you have to apply. You have to show why you're not going to be there on election day to justify getting one. When you sign it and send it back in, you fill out your ballot. You put it in a blank envelope. That goes inside of another envelope. You have to sign your name on the flap of the outer envelope so they can compare your name with the people who actually requested one and were sent one to make sure that the ballot in there is coming from a legitimate person. And then when they get the blank envelope out of the inside, it's opened in front of a committee that's made up of Republicans and Democrats, and sometimes even candidates will have people there watching. So it's a very secure system. We get our vote back very quickly. So I'm a very proud Kentuckian. I would say that if anybody around the country is looking for a safe, secure voting system, come do what we do.
You like the process in Kentucky?
I do.
Tabulators, I would assume. You guys do tabulators to count the votes?
We use machines to count the votes. The count from the machines is taken by a group of nonpartisan, or not a bipartisan group. That group then takes those counts back to the clerk's office and hands them in. The clerk and 2 or 3 other people double check the numbers before they're entered on the final sheet. It's announced that night, sometimes within an hour or two of the polls being closed. And then the official tabulation is collected and delivered to the Secretary of State's office sometime later. And that's when the official vote count is made.
No hand counting, though.
No, we're not hand counting the paper ballots. We do hand count the absentee ballots. They're not mail-in ballots. They're absentee ballots. Absentee voters who prove in advance that they're not going to be in town on election day or have a good reason, surgery or vacation or daughter's graduation, whatever it might be. But you have to apply for it. You get the ballot. You mail it back in with your signature on the outside, which is double checked against the list of issued ballots. And then the inside ballots are secret like the rest of them.
What was this charge? Because I saw a lot of YouTubers making the case that 10,000, what they would call mail-in ballots, but you called, what'd you call them?
Absentee ballots.
Absentee ballots. And that swung the election for Ed Gowron. Is that just utter nonsense in your mind?
Well, I don't know how many. I mean, if they're reporting the number of absentee ballots was large, I've run an awful lot of campaigns, and we know that military members of the military can vote absentee. We also know that people who are going to be out of town can vote absentee. And I was not involved in the hands-on with the Gowron campaign, but I would say they ran a pretty smart campaign because they won. And one of the smart things that most good campaigns have is a robust absentee ballot campaign. You get the list of people who applied for absentee ballots, and you see to it that you communicate with them before they turn them in. It's a well-known strategy. It's perfectly legitimate. You know that they're going to be voting because, or you suspect they're going to send their ballots back. You know they've requested a ballot, so they've obviously expressed an interest in being a voter, and you just reach out to them and make sure that they vote. And you follow up with them and say, hey, we hope you've sent your ballot back in. Sure would appreciate your vote. That's the same thing as going door to door.
What's your take on this charge? And I've repeated it, so I'm curious your opinion. About outside money coming in from AIPAC that really funded Ed Gowron. That seemed to be the big story coming out of the Massie campaign. I saw many people commenting on it. I've never checked any filings to make sure it was true, but they were saying like $20 million came in from AIPAC to support Ed Gowron because Thomas Massie had been so anti-AIPAC.
First of all, we have to be honest with each other. AIPAC is not foreign money. Foreign money is illegal. AIPAC is an American organization like, AARP, who represents seniors, other groups that represent their industries or their interest groups. AIPAC is an American group, a political action committee registered. It predominantly is, I would suspect, made up of people who support Israel in some way or another, but they're American citizens or they wouldn't be able to contribute. And the last I checked, of all of the money that went into helping to elect Ed Gowrine, and just so you make sure that this is clear, PAC money does not go to the campaign. PAC money is not spent by the campaign. PAC money and how it's spent cannot legally be coordinated with a campaign. It is independent expenditures by organizations who support one candidate over another. So an American PAC, like Massie had many on his side, an American PAC spent money in the campaign advancing the interests of Ed Gowrine over Thomas Massie. And the last I checked, the amount that AIPAC put in was about 10% of the total amount of money, not 32 million or 35 million. Now, I could be wrong. There may be more recent reporting, but the last I checked, which was, I think, right around the time of the election, they contributed about 10%.
You concerned?
He's correct. It's not AIPAC. It's Miriam Adelson and two other Jewish billionaires that ended up giving about 25 million.
See, Isaiah's good because I was getting ready to go there. So the other argument,
Isaiah, for confirming that I was right again.
Yes, no, that's what people get really confused. Unfortunately, is they think Miriam Adelson equals AIPAC, exactly. And that's just not the truth. You know,
exactly. He's my conscience behind me. That's where I was going to go with it, because AIPAC put in money, and then but the way it was described was three. I would call them dual citizens, Israeli and American citizens, put in a bunch of money because they were basically protesting against. If you can put up clip number 3, Isaiah, and let Mr. Carey see this. This is what AIPAC put out on a response just recently. This is why I'm curious about it, because the big divide, I think, really what's going on between the millennials and the boomers is the stance on Iran. Now, it could be something, not Iran, on Israel. And I think it could be multiple different things, but I really think that is.
I forgot to tell you that this was a fake post, Rob. I debunked it. Yeah, it was. It's a fake post. I meant to tell you that before the show. I debunked it. Yeah, I know.
It even had the blue check mark on it.
I know. No, it's. I scrolled through AIPAC timeline.
I thought it sounded crazy. I should have known.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, people are sharing it online as if it's you know how I do with my fact checks. I have to make sure it's true.
You saved me, because that would have been embarrassing.
Now see, that's the kind of guy you need in Congress, right?
Exactly.
That's the mindset.
And that's why I like the
facts, make sure they're true.
That's right. When I get something wrong, I get something wrong yesterday, and I always bring it right back into the show, because I do get things 3 hours, right? You're going to get some things wrong. What do you think of the three billionaires that put money in that were dual citizens? At least this is what's reported in the news. They were dual citizens with Israel. Is that just the way the system works? There's not really much you can do about it. That's why I ask you about Citizens United and the money, because it does feel like, especially in a small district, you could come in and really kind of just buy an election if you wanted to, because you can.
Well, this wasn't a small district nationwide. I mean, this was the most expensive congressional race in history, I think.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know. I mean, people are entitled. I mean, this is one of the other things that's out there for discussion. Are people entitled to do what they want in a free country, or should we be able to shout them down, embarrass them down, isolate them, develop tribalism against them? I mean, how do you do that? Thomas Massie had people apparently that he was associated with that were pro-Iranian. And so might that have sparked people who are pro-Israel to donate more money to the guy that's running against somebody who's got pro-Iranian alliances or meetings or potentially money? I don't know. I haven't tracked that. I know that it's a big topic right now in my district. How much connection did Massie have with Iranian interests in terms of money and influence and people that were helping him? It's coming to the top. It hasn't broken through yet, but it's under discussion. I don't know. I'm not here to make any comments about whether it's true or not. Maybe Isaiah can look into that.
Are you comfortable with all that money, though? Are you comfortable with that much money going in? I'm looking at this now, and I didn't when Citizens United was passed, I remember not really, the Republicans were pushing it at the time. So, and I'm a conservative thinker. So I was basically in line with what Fox News and the people going on Fox News were selling. I look back at it now, and I'm just watching how the political, environment works. And I'm wondering if we need billions of dollars in our election system, or if it just kind of weighs toward the most powerful people to be able to mislead people into certain things. What's your just take on all the money we're now spending in politics in this country?
I wish it wasn't there. I wish we weren't in that condition. But you have to understand that money is not in politics because politicians want to have to go out and earn money. Trust me, the last thing politicians like doing is asking for money.
Right.
That's the hardest job you have when you have a new candidate, is convincing them they've got to get on the phone and raise enough money to pay for their campaign. But where's the money going, right? So you have to ask yourself, why does it take millions and millions or billions of dollars to win a campaign? And the answer is because that money is being handled by consultants who in large part are paid good salaries for running a campaign, but then they place the ads, they do the mailers, they do all of the other stuff, they buy services, sometimes they get percentages, placement percentages, and then of course the TV channels make buku during campaign season. So they want to keep the tension on. They want to create tension all the time. It's always something sensational in the news every night, so people watch. And then the more numbers they get, they can sell to their advertisers. All of that money is going to somebody, right? It's not going to the candidate, not going in their pocket. It's not going back to the taxpayers. But people are spending money that's being funneled through organizations. People are donating money that's being funneled through organizations that then spend it. You got to start looking at if there's a better way. Donald Trump, if Tony Robbins one time said, it's really not that hard to be successful. Just study what other successful people did and then do that. Do you remember how little Donald Trump spent compared to his opponents? Because he mastered other ways of communicating. Now, if he's watching, Mr. President, I love you dearly, but just cut down on the amount of text messages, if you don't mind. Just, cut them back by 50%. I can't read them all, right? But he used other technologies to reach out directly to people and bypassed the campaign consultants, the media buyers, the commercial costs, all of that, right? So is there a better way in the 21st century to communicate with people? Maybe. Are people actually being influenced by one AI ad to vote overwhelmingly for your opponent? I don't think so. And when you stop and think about it, Rob, you spend all this money on a 30-second ad, right? And you run it and you hope that somebody in that district who's registered to vote, who plans to vote and hasn't made up their mind is going to see it that one 30-second time slot during the day when that ad runs.
Right.
It's stupid. It's just a huge waste of money. So the whole system needs to be reconsidered. No, I don't like all the money in politics. And you asked me earlier about Citizens United. I understand the First Amendment issue. I understand it fully, and I have to support the First Amendment. But I don't think there is any reason why, if they can put a limit on how much I'm allowed to donate as an individual, there have to be some limits on these other donations as well. It's that simple. What's good for me should be good for them.
I agree. Were you, I was going to ask you too about this election with Massie. I got a couple more questions for you. Were you an Ed Galrine supporter, or were you more of I'm just not down with Thomas Massie? How did that play out with you? Were you a Ed Galrine guy?
I've always been somebody looking for a good candidate that could beat Thomas Massie. I always thought we could do better. And this is no slam on him. I have no personal animosity toward him whatsoever. It's just that I don't think he did a good job. I mean, you may like an employee very well, but if he's just slacking, he's got to go. And he's been slacking for 7 terms. I was always looking for a candidate that could beat him. And he likes to talk about how he beat everybody who ever came along soundly before. And he did. But there were really no, what I would call, solid, powerful campaigns against him. I don't know why. Some of them started out strong and fizzled. Some of them never really got off the ground. But he never had a real opponent. So this time, when the president endorsed Ed Galrine early on, I called some people who knew him, and they said, he's a solid guy, a great choice. He's a good man. I met him once. I shook his hand. I heard him speak for 10 minutes at a luncheon. And he's the real deal. I mean, is he a polished politician? No. But I've had my fill of those. Is he a solid guy? He's a Navy SEAL. He's put his life on the line. He took an oath and signed away his life for several years to defend our country. I have to respect that. I respect all military veterans. I think that that's a plus. I think that he has his head on straight. Heard him say the other day, he was talking to somebody. Somebody said, well, I don't really know what your issues are. He looked at this guy and he said, well, what are your issues? Because those are my issues. Bingo. That's the answer. So is he new? Is he green? Is he maybe not a charismatic character yet? I don't think you have to be. I don't think you should be. I think we've had enough of that. We need real people, hardworking, who've demonstrated been battle tested for being devoted to the service of our country. Those people are who we need. He fits that bill. So I started out hoping somebody good would come along and run against Thomas Massie. I didn't know Ed Galrine. Before the election was over, I got to know more about him. He's the exact right guy for the time.
What did you think about one of the knocks that I have against him is I'm a big fan of debate. You know, I talk about it on my show. I try to get everybody in Missouri politics to come out and have a conversation with me, just like it did you. I think most people thought we'd have a contentious debate. I said, I never am mad at anybody that comes to talk to me. I want to have a conversation with them. But if they're willing to have it, then they're convicted to what they believe in, right? That's how we find out, you know, what's going on in the world. What do you think of him declining a debate? I think you almost have to debate. If you want to represent people, you have to go after your challenger. You have to talk to them. You have to see them eye to eye. I just think that's a really important part of the process. And now people are getting away with it. I talked about it. Katie Hobbs did not debate Carey Lake right here in Missouri, and she won. So Katie Hobbs won. In Missouri, Mike Kehoe is the governor of the state. He would not debate Ashcroft or Eigel when he was running. Ed Galrine would not debate. There was five of them I was thinking about yesterday. My mind's going blank. But it seems like if you don't debate now, Donald Trump didn't debate in the primaries with the Republican Party. I don't understand why people aren't. It almost should be a requirement as far as I'm concerned. How do you get to represent people and then not debate the people that say that I want to confront you? It seems odd to me. What's your take?
Well, you got to get with the times here, Rob.
I know, apparently.
First of all, you know, back during the Lincoln Douglas debates, how else was anybody going to learn anything about the candidates, right? Or what they thought,
right? Or
how they conducted themselves, what their demeanor was. And that held true for a long time. But if you'll remember, it was Nixon and Kennedy, I think, in their debate that really kind of set the tone for future debates. Debates were now all of a sudden a TV event, right? And that's great, as long as the debate is real and gets to the points that people want to learn about. But after that debate was identified as a made-for-TV moment, then ultimately that perverted and destroyed the real meaningfulness of debates. And here's why I say that. I've been to debates. I have been to vice presidential debates. I've been in the audience. I helped put together a vice presidential debate. The audience is made up of people who are chosen by the two people who are debating, or they're chosen by party leaders and they get so many tickets each. So the audience is by and large made up. I'm talking about the studio audience, or the ones who are in attendance, made up by people who've already got their mind made up and they already have a candidate, right? So you're not there to debate in front of them. They're already assigned, already aligned. So you're debating in front of what? A TV audience? Mm-hmm. And now what is the debate like? Debate is just a bunch of kids in a lunchroom throwing food at each other. It's just a ridiculous display of the worst side of everybody. So what would be the goal of a debate? The goal of a debate would be to make the other guy look bad, or come up with a one-liner or two that the media is going to run with for a week until something pushes it off the table, right? Till something else comes along that they talk about. Debates really have no impact anymore, because there are other ways to communicate who you are, what you stand for, define yourself, and answer the questions that are on the voters' minds in a multitude of ways that we didn't have even 15 years ago. I mean, what you're doing here, new media, YouTube, Rumble, X Spaces, which, by the way, I'm hosting my first X Space tomorrow night at Marcus Carey on X. I invite everybody to come and ask any question you want. I'm more than happy to have a conversation. I don't want to cause anybody any anguish. I'm not trying to shout people down. I'm not going to preach to anybody. I just want us as a nation to be able to have a reasonable, fair, polite debate about the things that are the most interesting to us. Those are the debates that are going to count. Now, I like the town hall settings.
I do too.
Although they're structured and they're scripted and they're as phony as Howard Cosell's wig. I mean, they're just not real anymore. You have these town hall meetings. The people are chosen who get to come to the mic. Sometimes you wonder whether or not the questions weren't given to them in advance. The answers rehearsed. It's just so phony that I don't really think debates have much value. I think they're just a gotcha moment. They create occasional sound bites. As Dan Bongino says, campaigns are all about, what is it? Snapshots and sound bites. That's all it's about. There's no meaning to them anymore. They've lost their utility. They're not valuable. And if you do debate, then great. But if you're calling for someone to debate, you just watch. It's usually a sign that you think you're behind.
Yeah.
If you're ahead.
That's the running theme in politics. When you're behind, you want to debate. When you're ahead, you don't, right? That's right. The running theme. Quick question for you on Cynthia West. Now, Cynthia West, she's interesting to us because I picked up the MMTLP story long ago. Had a constituent in Missouri reached out to me. I was actually coming from Mar-a-Lago, if you can believe it. And he told me the whole story. I said, well, that's kind of crazy. And then I started petitioning Congress people around Missouri. And I just realized nothing was going to happen. So I was familiar with the Cynthia West story. And then I saw you come out and talk to her. Did we ever get any resolution to what the accusations that she was making about the money, the sexual innuendos and all that stuff is really, that's not really where my head is at. But didn't she say that $60,000 was offered to her for her silence and signing an NDA? Did we ever figure out whether that was true? Did you find out whether that was true or not?
I will tell you what's true. What's true is what she said under oath in the interview I conducted with her and the transcript of it that I've circulated. That's what's true. To my belief, I mean, I put her under oath for that reason, so that she swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That satisfied me that she would do that. I think people honor their oath. And what she told was apparently the same story that she'd been telling for maybe a year, but she wasn't getting any traction. Nobody would listen to her. The story she told was that she was separated from her husband, living in Florida, and out of the blue, Thomas Massie starts chatting her up on X 5-6 weeks or so after his wife died. And very quickly, he moved, as she said, toward a relationship. It was accelerating toward a relationship. And that relationship developed quickly, and she was very taken by him. And in the position she was in at the time, she actually felt like this was going to be a future relationship that had some longevity to it. He gave her a ring, a promise ring, which I think she said recently in another interview was maybe his wife's mother's ring. So you would think that'd be kind of serious.
Right.
She's traveling to Washington to visit with him. She goes to his house in Kentucky. He comes to Florida. They take some trips together. This seemed like a good relationship, but it wasn't enough for him. He wanted to be with her more. And so she had her kids 1 week and then she was off a week. So out of the blue, she got a message from him that he had gotten her a job working in Washington, D.C. so she could be up there on her free week when she wasn't with her kids so that he could be with her more often. And we did not go into the sensational stuff because it's a separate story and it was not related to what this interview was about. And she said, so she took the job. She was working for a congresswoman out of Indiana by the name of Victoria Spartz, Spartz.
Ukrainian.
I know I tried dictating that a couple of times and always got it wrong. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't long after she started working there, she saw some things that she thought were inappropriate. And because employees in the federal government do not have whistleblower status, she took it to the ethics committee. They took it seriously and they started working on it, but nothing was happening. And sort of in the middle of that, after that was done, in a couple of other encounters with Thomas, she started seeing their relationship being pushed in a direction that she didn't want to go. And I left it there in my interview with her. He was asking her to do things she wasn't comfortable with. And I felt it was appropriate for the audience and for her as a woman to leave it there and not go any further with it. But when she did raise with him the fact that she didn't like the way that the relationship was going, he became angry and combative. And then at some point, and I would have to look at the transcript, tell you the exact timeline, but it was all within a matter of a couple of weeks, I think. She lost her job when she broke up with Thomas, and Thomas knew that he had been named as a witness. That was not on her part. She had to fill out forms. Who are the witnesses who know what took place here? And she put him down and she called him and let him know. And he got extremely angry, I believe she said, or very upset, something like that, and said, I drop this. You can't do anything. You're just one person. Walk away. And she said that he offered her $5,000 and she didn't take it. She wouldn't accept the $5,000. And that made him even angrier, I believe. Now, if I've got my timing right. And then she finds out she's fired. And she files, the people at the ethics committee directed her to an agency that helps employees of the federal government who are discharged and believe that it was retaliatory. There's a place to file that complaint. She did. And when she filed that complaint, that was going through the process. And so everything was moving slowly. She didn't see anybody taking any of this seriously. And I think she told Congressman Fine, she put it on X, she put some of these things out in various places. And her story was kind of just generally circulating around. And she wasn't getting anywhere. And a few weeks before we did the interview, I had heard about her story. She made contact with me and she wanted to tell her story and asked me if I'd be willing to let her do it and help her do it. And some people who knew that I've pretty much always in my career as a lawyer represented the underdog. I've always taken the cases that nobody else wanted. And she had a story to tell. And I thought, hey, look, here we are in an environment where everybody wants transparency. Everybody wants authenticity. Everybody wants the truth. What better way to get to it than to have a woman come in and tell it in her own words, start to finish with no edits, under oath, the way she wants to tell it, and put it out there. That's transparency to me. That's the way she felt. And that's what we did. And that's where the story ended up. Now, people ran off in all directions, as I'm sure you know. I mean, they go everywhere with stuff. And at first I tamped down some of those. I said, no. You're not stating it the way she did. You're adding details that weren't there. And pretty soon I was in a meadow filled with moths with a really small butterfly net. And I said, I can't knock all these down. There's too many. It's going too wild. And so I just gave up on trying to do that and let it go its own direction.
Gotcha. Last question, because we talked about this yesterday and we touched on it, but I want to get your opinion on it. I do see a divide between the millennials, which is Isaiah's age, and we'll just call it the boomer generation, which I'm close to a boomer generation to begin with. What do you think is causing that divide? I keep thinking it's Israel, just based on what I hear. Do you sense that that's part of it? What is your take on why there's this sudden divide where we keep using the boomers as the bad guy with the millennials, and then I don't hear the boomers saying anything about the millennials, but I do hear the millennials talking about the boomers. What do you think is causing this divide?
And I want to ask a follow-up question after this, kind of regarding it too as well.
There's my conscience again.
Well, first of all, you're dating yourself. It's not the millennials. The millennials are 40s and 50s. Okay.
Are they?
Okay. So the next generation below us, I think, is Gen X, and then the millennials after that. And then after that are Gen Y, Z, and then Gen I or something now. I think the real energy, the real angst, the real anxiety is in the 18 to 35 age range.
Agreed.
And I think it's not just Israel. That's a huge factor, but I don't even know that there's a fair way of saying this. It's one thing to be opposed to the political policies of Israel or money from our country going to Israel or the influence Israel may have over our policy. That's one thing. That's a political discussion. But Rand Paul's son accosted a congressman at a dinner not too long ago. And he said, if Thomas Massie loses this election, it's all due to you or your people. The congressman said, what do you mean, my people? He said, the Jews. Congressman said, did you think I'm Jewish? Rand Paul's son said, you're not? Oh, I'm sorry. And then gratuitously said, I hate the Jews. I hate the gays, and made some other comments that I won't repeat.
Rand Paul's son did this?
Terrible. Rand Paul's son.
Wow. Okay.
So widely reported. Politico carried the article. It's elsewhere. The congressman's even given a video interview about it. Rand Paul's son claims that, he has a drinking problem and he apologizes and he's getting help with it. Good for him. I hope he does. But I don't think that these younger generations are totally focused on that. I believe that they don't see a path forward toward prosperity for themselves. They're spending all this money to go to college. They have a huge amount of debt. They're graduating from college. They believe the people in my generation lived in the lap of luxury, which of course we don't. Most of us are now on fixed incomes, but we lived in the lap of luxury. We ran up the debt for the country. We walked away. We said, hey, we had a great life, and we dumped it on them. That's the way they see it. And they see that they don't have a path forward to live the same kind of prosperity that we did. I think that they have a lot of blame that they lay in a lot of different places. I don't think they like Muslims. I don't think they like Jews. I'm not even sure they like anybody. I'm not sure who they like. I know they like themselves, and I know they like other groups, but they're being divided on tribalism. They're being manipulated in some degree amongst themselves, but they're also reading books that are written by people that talked about some of the benefits of Nazism, or those are influencers in their generation. And so the question becomes, what are they thinking? And that's why I'm doing this space on X tomorrow night. I want to know what they're thinking. I want them to tell me. I don't want to guess. I hear it from other people, but I want to hear it from them. I want to know what they're saying, because I think it's time that we have an intergenerational conversation. They don't like boomers, period, at all. They blame us for everything that's going on. And if I was their age and I didn't see a path to prosperity and I thought that somebody else was getting in my way, I'd probably lay some blame on them too. I just want to know, is there a path forward? How do we solve that for them now? What can we do to make it better for them? You know, if we've made it good for ourselves, we're at an age where our wisdom isn't just what we know, but it's pattern recognition. It's our recognition of what happened in history and how these little things in society can ultimately multiply to the point where you have the Holocaust. And, you know, Thomas Massie in the last week of the campaign brought in some people, and one of them is this guy named Ryan Matta, who Thomas Massie hugged and took his picture with him. He's wearing a big sweatshirt with the word American Reich on it. He's got some horrific videos out there calling all Jews dirty people, that there were no gas chambers. They were just showers designed to wash the vermin off of them, the bugs and the ticks and the lice and stuff. I mean, some really horrific stuff. And I hear that talk. I hear that talk in our country. And I understand that there's anger and frustration and worry, but is it being directed in the right direction? Is it being directed to finding better people to hold public office? Is it being directed to finding solutions to the problem rather than thinking laying blame somewhere is a solution? Because those of us who are old enough to remember and studied it see how this slowly creeps into a society. What's the story? There are an awful lot of people sitting on their balconies and on their porches along the Rhine River who didn't wake up and smell the smokestacks until it was too late. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm concerned about, is that we're not talking to each other. We're angry with each other, and we need to put an end to it. And that's why when you said something on X and I responded, I'll come talk, I mean it. And I'm so glad that you gave me this opportunity, Rob, because I think for those of us who really do not only care about our country, but care about the future generations that will inherit this country and will run this country, we really do want to make sure that their lives are better. And we can only do that while we're here. I think we need to join forces with them.
I agree. I think we all have to. I think we as a society have to get our act together, because the country, I'm very nervous about the direction of the country, even with Donald Trump, who I campaigned for. I'm nervous about certain things. One of them is just the anti-Semitism thing. You know, one of the things you brought up, and one of the reasons I want to have the conversation is Isaiah. And I know Isaiah, you have a question you can definitely ask, but I keep getting called anti-Semitic. I was talking to you about it yesterday. It's one of the reasons I want to have a conversation with you. When I was on the radio, I was disagreeing with the policy that we had with Israel. And one of them was, I don't like that they're bombing Lebanon. I don't like what they did in Gaza. I just don't like that. I don't like war to begin with. I'm a conservative who doesn't think war is the answer to all of our problems. And I think sometimes our intelligence agencies craft and orchestrate information in order to take us to war. I have the USS Liberty survivor, Phil Turney, on tomorrow. So when I see these things, I'm like, okay, well, you know, when Mitch McConnell from Kentucky says, I think it's great. You know, I mean, what are we doing? We're giving money to Ukraine. They're bringing it back into the military industrial complex. We make weapons for them. We kill Russians. It's all fantastic. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know why that's fantastic, but you know, I mean, I just, that mindset to me seems a little off balance. When I started talking out about what was going on in Israel, I would have people at the radio station sending in these crazy letters that I'm an anti-Semite. I'm like, anti-Semite? We married into a Jewish family. Isaiah's Jewish. I work for prominent Jewish family in Los Angeles that is like family to me. My father went to U City High School in Missouri back in the 60s. It's almost completely Jewish. He was only the 5 Gentiles that went to the school at the time. It's just not a good argument for me and my family. Yet it was so pounded at me, and there was such vitriol at me. I was like, what is going on? I disagree with Israeli policy. Therefore, I hate all Jews. Where did this come from? But this is what was coming at me, and I could show you the letters. The radio station saved them for me. I think that's unfair. And I think that the conflation of that is something we have to be very careful of, because that what's happening in this country that we have to pay attention to are the anti-free speech laws. They're in Missouri. I mean, in Missouri, you can't do business. And I want to do business with the state of Missouri. I can't do business with the state of Missouri unless I sign a pledge that I won't boycott Israel. And I'm like, well, I'm not boycotting Israel, but if I disagree with their policy, I should have a right as a Missourian to disagree with Israel and still do business with my own state. But I can't in the state of Missouri. Then they just recently, within the last legislative session, they passed anti-free speech laws that say if I don't agree with the IHRA list of what anti-Semitism is, then we can't talk about it on college campuses. We can't even have the conversation about it anymore. And I'm like, these little things, I think, make it worse for my Jewish friends. I think it makes it worse because it implies that they're having special treatment over the rest of us. And that creates a situation where you're going to have a backlash against Jews, which I think is a terrible thing. I'm with you. I agree with you 100%. But sometimes our actions almost create a counterintuitive reaction from citizens that I don't think most people are recognizing, but I think the millennials are getting caught up in the spokes of that particular situation. I know it's a lot, but just your reaction to what I have to say.
I think your experience is indicative of the sensitivity that our nation has always had, that isn't just born out of some love for another religion, but it's born out of the same thing we started with. We recognize that life is a gift from God. And in order to protect that life, we protected the freedom of everybody to live the life they wanted. I lived the life I wanted as a homesteader. For that reason, I moved to a farm with my kids where I could raise my kids in an environment that I chose. And that was an ideal lifestyle for the people in the early colonial days. And when we first formed our nation, they could take a wagon across the Allegheny Mountains and they could land in Kentucky or Ohio, Indiana or Illinois, and they could go out on some open land and make a life for themselves, and they didn't have any governance. The world's not like that anymore. We're right up against each other. And if we're not right up against each other, we can be there in a couple of hours in an airplane. I think that the world now has to look at the founding principles and say, was this a good idea? And the first good idea that we came up with after we formed the framework of our government was, okay, we're going to have some amendments to this Constitution right away. And the first one is, you got the right to think whatever you want. You got the right to say it. And you got the right to believe whatever you want. And nobody can interfere with that, at least not the Congress. I think that we've all kind of adopted that philosophy as being at the core of who we are, that we recognize that people are allowed to worship the way they want, whatever God they want, in whatever way they want. They can't do harm to us. You can't have a God that says, go out and kill all the Jews. Right. They can't do harm to us. You can't have somebody a religion or a belief system that says, go out and kill all the Americans. We can't tolerate that. That doesn't make any sense. But I think that we have to always believe that it's the right of every human being whose life was given to them by God to live their life the way they see fit, think what they want, say what they want, believe what they want, and practice what they believe. And so when we get to the point where we start minimalizing people and dehumanizing them and putting them in categories where we say the Germans had a word for it. I can never say it, but it meant life not worthy of living. And that's how they dealt with certain people. It wasn't just Jews, I mean, and in other countries, the Bolsheviks, they dealt with people in horrific ways. And we see it in China, the Uyghurs and others. I mean, there are still places on this earth where who you are, what bloodline you're from, how you believe, how you act, how you look can result in you being scooped up, jailed, and disappeared. And that's not us. But we've got people right now who, for some reason or another, are talking in the language of the people who believe that. I don't think they believe it. They certainly wouldn't believe it if it was their group that was being scooped up. But I think that we need to have a conversation about what civilized society looks like and how we have to treat each other. I don't think it has anything to do with being a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu or a Muslim. I think it has to do with how we respect each other as human beings. That's the key. and we're getting to the point where we're warring with each other. And we've got candidates who are going out and bragging about how they have one group that supports them and the other group are a bunch of fools. We are not going to win as a country that way. The motto of Kentucky, our state motto is united we stand, divided we fall. And we need to get back to that. We need to be one nation under God with liberty and justice for everybody. If we get there, we're taking a step in the right direction.
Amen. All right. Marcus Carey. I enjoyed that.
Mind if I
Go ahead, Isaiah.
So just, I did want to answer you just on the millennial thing because I'm a millennial. I'm 30. I'll be 34 in 4
I
days.
thought that wasn't millennial. Somebody's telling me that's the age 40 now. What are millennials?
No, so millennials are up to 47 years old right now. So 1981 to 1996. And so that's so it is pretty, there are older millennials, definitely. And so, I would say that
subgroup now.
older, yeah. No, I mean, it's a wider range. It's a wider range than you think, which is surprising to me.
Yeah.
But the thing that for me, this is my experience, and I've heard this experience for many folks in my seat, is that I saw 9/11 happen. I was at school. I watched it on TV. I got sent home, so I remember all those things. And now I know it's a lie, that the government lied to us and that, these were false pretenses why we started this war. And, another lie that I think, well, I don't know, it's my opinion that it's a lie that Israel is our greatest ally. I think there's other countries that are also great allies. And I don't know if Israel is the greatest ally, USS Liberty, things like that. That's what we're starting to question in our age. And then also theologically, I went to Moody Bible Institute, Marcus. So, I have a degree in biblical studies. I have a degree in Jewish studies. And so pre-tribulation rapture and dispensationalism theology was big at that college, and it's big in Christian Zionism. That's big theology of Christian Zionists. And, if you just take a plain reading of the Bible, it doesn't support that view of a pre-tribulation rapture and premillennialism and things like that, because it talks about how the saints will endure tribulation and all these things. And so, I believed it. I was, a big supporter of Israel. I still am a supporter of Israel. I would say that I think there's things that are hard for us to wrestle with, because something I was even just talking with Grok about is, what does it mean to be a right to exist? Because I studied Zionism. I know Theodore Herzl. I know about all what they call the Aliyot back to 1880s when the first Aliyah happened. And, there was already discrimination against Jewish people, and they were moving them to the Mandate of Palestine so that they could start, hopefully, a Jewish homeland, And so I have all these things, and that's just my experience, right? I have all this stuff of, this is what I grew up with from a political standpoint, with the war that just was the whole time I was alive. And then we get pulled out of Afghanistan. That was a botched thing. And now it's just gone back to the Taliban. Right. And so all these things are my experience. And I think that's where we're at, because I'm with you and Rob on the low IQ, what I call, and my generation calls it low IQ anti-Semitism, there's definitely Israeli influence. You can't ignore that, but to blame all Jews, right? That's wrong. You have people like Norman Finkelstein, who would, people call him a Holocaust denier, but he's Jewish, right? And so you can't paint a whole group of people for anything, in my opinion, and many people's opinion. But I think it's just, that's the experience millennials have had, and it's a different experience than I think Generation X, and different experience than Boomers had. But I want to learn from that experience. I think that's a good conservative value, is to learn from experience and not to just jump to conclusions necessarily. And so I have my views and what I believe, but that's kind of where we're at, and I'm sure other people will have, even crazier views than me that you'll hear on your X Space tonight and things like that. But just as a general, that's my experience. And I think that's a lot of our experiences, and you can respond to that. You don't have to. I just wanted you to, because I know you're asking. And so I'll at least give you an anscer. I know sometimes I think we need to talk to generation.
If Rob will give me a second, I will comment.
Take your time. Sure.
I very much appreciate that recitation of what your experience is and what your training is and your background is. And I think you're right. I think you learn from experience. But one of the things I'd like to at least say is that although you all had that experience, we did too. I mean, we were there. We watched it. We watched the WMD lie about Iraq be told. We watched huge amounts of blood and treasure be spent on something that didn't need to be spent on.
Yeah.
We watched the long slog in Afghanistan, what it cost us, and the embarrassing, extraordinarily costly way we got out. We saw all of that. And I agree with you that you need to learn from experience. But one of the things I would encourage people to do is realize that the more experiences you have, the more you learn. And the longer you live, the older you are, the more experiences you have. So your experiences and your learning suddenly aren't one thing, they're pattern recognition developed over a long period of time. And I think that what we're all seeing right now is that we have a government that we distrust and we don't like what they're doing. We don't know that we're being told the truth. We suspect that we're being lied to. We see what we consider to be ulterior motives, but we all have the same goal, and that is to fix it, to find solutions. And that's what I do for a living. I help people find solutions. And the best way to find solutions is to share our experiences with each other, to talk through them, to figure out whether or not one experience means you should never use a hammer again just because you hit your thumb. Hammers are too dangerous for people to use. Maybe you learn from experiences, and then you learn from other experiences, and you learn from people who have had experiences you haven't had yet. And I think that's the whole point of what I'm trying to do is we are one country and we need to work together. And I need to learn what you know. I need to hear what you've got to say. And I'm not here to preach to anybody. I just recognize that the more we all learn, the better decisions we'll make.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have right on the shelf behind me, I have Barry Goldwater's Conscious of a Conservative. And that's one of the things that he really preaches, I would say, is that, you learn from those who went before you. And that's what I want to do. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, I guess you could say, but I also want to, there are people that you are extremely reasonable and extremely willing to hear thoughts out and hear things out that some people are uncomfortable with. There's people that I could tell that, hey, Israel, I don't think Israel is our greatest ally, and they would freak out on me. You know what I mean? And I think it's also younger people, like you said, Rand Paul's son, oh, it's the Jews, right? So it's not just boomers. It's not just millennials. I think it's just how you approach it. And if you're willing to have a conversation, right? Are you willing to talk about it, hear other different points of view? And I think that's maybe where millennials and Gen Z maybe have not felt heard on their opinion or their viewpoints. Now I think it's becoming more and more, which is great, to where we're having these conversations. And I don't want to keep you here forever, Marcus. But
listen, you want more? I'm going to, Rob, if I could give you a little plug, if you don't mind.
Sure.
If anybody wants to have this conversation more, you can find me at a really easy website, Mark with a C, M-A-R-C, marklistens.com. And it's open for comments, communications. We're going to put them on the X space. We'll discuss them on the website. I'll post them with other people's comments when we get them. And I hope that together we can solve some of the problems that are now pushing us all apart.
We'll spend some more time together, Marcus.
Last quick question I have. That was not my question. That was just you. I know you asked that. And so I just kind of wanted to give my opinion and hear your response to that. But this is I think a question that many millennials would ask about the Ed Gallerine and Thomas Massie situation, because I heard you talk about him and I appreciated what you have to say to him. And I do think that, being a Navy SEAL, that is something that's really good to look at. Anyone with military background, I think has made sacrifices and shown that they care and love our country. However, I didn't feel when you gave your answer, and I still don't know. I can tell you this. I follow politics very closely, and I don't know the answer to this question. And that is, what does Ed have, or what is he going to do that Thomas Massie wasn't already doing or wasn't planning on doing? I think that's what a lot of people are asking. And I'm just curious.
Fair question. And let me answer it for you, because it's a real simple answer. I believe, and this is my belief, that when a person is hired to be a representative, they have, every one of them, have all staked out issues. It's one of the fallacies of running a political campaign. It's not important. Your issues are not what's important. What you believe in isn't important. What you want to go to Washington, D.C. and do isn't important. You have to put those things aside Your job is to be the voice of the people of your district. It's not to stake out something that you claim to be a constitutional issue or a so-called liberty issue. And quite frankly, I would debate all day long with people who don't understand what the word liberty means. They wrap themselves in it, but they don't know what it means. Liberty issues, you stake out issues for yourself and you say, this is a hill I'm going to die on. That's not your job. That's not your job. Everybody in DC wants to be a leader. They all want to be the thought leader. They all want to be the star. There's only one leader. Only one person is elected by everybody in the country. That's the president. We have House of Representatives. We have a Senate. The House of Representatives have a district. Their job is to go into their district, find out what those people want, and then go do that. Not tell people, here's what I want to do, and then rally people around their issue. That's not what their job is. Ed Galrine understands his job. Thomas Massie did the other. Thomas Massie staked out issues for himself. He had a small group of supporters to begin with. He built a larger coalition around it. But ultimately, when our district voted to give Donald Trump a chance to advance his agenda, we voted overwhelmingly for President Trump. I think our district still supports Donald Trump by a large measure. I believe that our district says we want somebody in Washington, D.C. that's going to help Donald Trump advance the agenda that we hope will work for America. We watched a bunch of others get tried. They didn't work. He has one that he says he thinks will work. We're still on his side. We need somebody from our district to go help him. And when Thomas Massie gives an interview to the Atlantic magazine and says, if I'm elected, I'm going to try to rally other Republicans around me to stand up to Donald Trump, he's not representing our district. So that may be his issue. That may be where he stands. And if you align with him, then by all means, then that would be where you would vote. But that doesn't make up the majority in our district, as the most recent election just proved.
That was generally my assumption. I'm not a Kentuckian. I'm not from the 4th district, none of those things, but
well, you should be. Beautiful.
I love I'm an alderman here in my city. I love my city. It's this Franklin County out here in Missouri. It's beautiful as well in the Ozarks.
Yeah, that is.
But that's my assumption, Marcus, because I think it was 40 points or something that Trump won that district or something like that, and so it is a hard fight.
67%, I think.
Yeah, he told Massie that, Isaiah. Remember, he said, I'm more important than you. Remember, Massie did the joke where he was on Tucker Carlson and said, Trump called him, I'm more popular than you, and I will take you out. And he did.
I mean, we talked about that, Rob. You remember when Allie was on here, we were looking at the percentage of endorsements and wins that Trump has. It's every year, it's more and more. It started in the 80% and now we're 90%. And this year it's at 100%. And so you can't ignore that. And I think that anyone who ignores that is just putting their head in the sand, just like we accuse people of putting their head in the sand.
I agree. I think if you go against Donald Trump in the Republican primaries, you're in trouble. I really do that. And I think the evidence proves that out. Marcus Carey, I got another interview coming up. You did really well, my friend. I appreciate how reasoned you are. I'd love to have you back on. In fact, if you want to have more conversations like this, just let me know, because I think this is how people start to put the knives down. We have to fix our country at some point. We got to, everybody can't win. We have to have some kind of compromise and talk to each other at some point. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
I sincerely appreciate you asking me on, Rob, and anytime.
You got it, my friend. Marcus Carey, everybody. Enjoy your day, sir. We'll be in touch. You got it. All right, Isaiah, that was good.
Fantastic.
I enjoyed that. I like having conversations like that. Did that feel like a debate at all to you, Isaiah? That felt like a conversation.
No,
right?
that's why I had to commend him on whether, there's things that we disagreed on, there's things that we agreed on. He handled everything in a way where
I thought he gave good answers, even when
he's not pointing the finger. He's not, what we've seen, from other kind of people that would on the internet as this whole thing is played out during the elections. It's just, and I think he made a good point. It's, when you're debating nowadays, it just seems like it's throwing food in the cafeteria, and it's just
that's why it's so funny he said that, because I was going to tell you. Remember yesterday when you said that's how debates are run? I said, well, that's not how they should be run. It should be two people. Yeah, it should be two people right in front of each other. You don't even need the audience. The audience is irrelevant, right? Because if it's on TV, but if those two people are sitting in front of each other and there is no moderator and there's no audience to ask the
conversation,
just let the two people hash it out.
Yeah.
right?
Have a conversation.
If you're running for office in Kentucky, right, like Ed Galbraith was, he has to know what his constituents are thinking. He has to have some, in order to represent them, you have to understand what they're thinking at some level. And Thomas Massie the same. I don't need a moderator. I don't need an audience. I just need the two men, or a man and a woman, or two women, or one trans and one man, or one true trans. I don't care what it is. But they sit down face to face and they challenge each other on their perspectives on what's going on in their district, in their country, in their state, and everything else. I just think that is the way. We have to have intelligent people running for office, number one. If you can't sit across from somebody and have a conversation, just like we did, just right there with Marcus Carey, right? If you can't have a conversation with two intelligent people sitting across from each other saying, no, this is where I think you're wrong. No, this is why I think you're wrong. Well, wait a minute, this is what I want to do. Well, this is why it won't work. And you have that. Everybody gets smarter. Everybody gets to learn. Everybody gets to see people react under pressure. Everybody gets to judge whether the person that they're going to elect can actually get the job done that they promise they can do. I just think that's where the world has to head. And it will.
You also have to recognize the things that you also have to recognize when they are making good points too, because I think that's a problem with our current set of debates, like we talk about, right? Is that they're not willing to acknowledge that the other person just said something good or made a good point. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If we think back to the debate with Hillary, with Trump, I thought the best question that someone asked is, hey, what is one thing that you appreciate about your opponent? And they had to say something positive about each other, and they did.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you have to do. You have to say, man, hey, that was actually a really good point that she made there. Here's why I think that's wrong. Right?
It can't be a food fight forever.
Yeah.
Right. You can't be at war internally forever. You can disagree, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to be come to blows. Kind of thing.
Did Trump ruin debates from the perspective with the name calling? No. That's
but
kind of
he might have. This is the argument I make against Donald Trump. He may have so poisoned the public with the rhetoric that now I had somebody, and then I got to read these. I got to get to Rockit Careers, but I had somebody that was a really good friend of mine. His son played baseball for me. He hated Donald Trump in 2016, and he would put out these things about racist, sexist, and that offended me because I'm the exact opposite of that. I don't have a racist bone in my body. I love all people, and I mean that sincerely. I've said things that, sarcastically, that if it were used against me, you could paint me out to. I've said that all the time. You could paint me out to be Hitler if you wanted to.
Of course.
But the reality is I love all people as they come to me. But that's not, that's not the perception that people get, because Donald Trump came out, started poisoning the well, started creating this backlash on the other side. And then I was called deplorable, a racist, a sexist, this and that and the other, which made me fight back even harder. I would say that. Now I'm fighting back, and now I'm in a war against people that I once loved. And he died. I never even got to have a conversation with him. He just died recently. This is somebody that I really, really liked. His son played baseball. I mean, great ball player. His father was always very supportive of me, spoke the world of me. And then we get into these religious conversations after our kids have graduated and they're out of school and everything else. And we, at the end of his life, we never got a chance to reconcile, which I find ridiculous.
Yeah.
I do. I just think it's crazy.
That's what Nick Fuentes says. That's the reason he is the way he is because they said something that he didn't actually say, and they were trying to amplify it, right?
Yep.
Even though that's not what he said. And he said, well, screw it. If you're going to call me a Nazi, if you're going to call me a racist, if you're going to call me, and that's what he said on the Piers Morgan interview too. He's like, Piers Morgan's like, are you a racist? And sarcastically, he's like, sure, if that's what you want to call me. Right. And it's, but like, that's where we're at, I think a lot of young people feel that way too, just because of, I think that's our attitudes. It's like, oh, that's what you're going to call. Sure. Okay. Whatever.
I would much rather, this is one of the arguments that I have with some of the people that are close to me, but this is my style, right? This like Jake is very aggressive, right? Jake Jackson, and he's calling people out, and he curses at times, but he goes after some of these politicians. Not my style, but I don't own Jake. Jake's a part of People's Lobby in Missouri because he agrees with the principles of what we're fighting for. How he goes after some of these politicians is really not my business. He doesn't do it under the People's Lobby logo. He does it under Jake Jackson, a free person who disagrees and wants to get after it, right? But the Republican Party, I'm just looking at some stuff on social media, and we'll talk about it later. I'm watching how some of the people that are involved with the Republican Party try to paint everybody with one brush. And then when you try to paint the Republican Party with one brush, they go, no. That was the rhinos, and that was this person. I'm going, well, you can do it to me, But if I say that the Republican Party didn't get the job done, I'm not understanding because there's factions of the Republican Party. I said, why can't you offer me those same, grant me those same options? For me, it's you conflate me with everybody around me. Everybody if Jake Jackson says something, all of a sudden I agree with everything Jake Jackson says, right? But when I say that you did it, all of a sudden I'm the terrible person. It's just it's hypocritical, and they don't even see it. But anyway,
it's the same with the MMTLP. Producer boy over here.
Producer boy. RockitCareers.com. RockitCareers.com. ROCKIT Careers.com. My good friends Mitch and Brian, if you are a small to medium-sized business out there and HR just cannot get the job, they don't do it right. They give you these candidates that are not very good, and you look at them and go, man, how am I going to run a business with this schlub? This is not going to get it done. I have to have good candidates for my business. If you are a small to medium-sized business and you need to fill a position and it's an important or integral role within your business, RockitCareers.com. ROCKIT Careers.com. They'll put the right candidate before you. They'll get them prepped and ready, and you'll find that your business excels because you have great people working for you. Let a talent agency who has a network from coast to coast go to work for you. Cost effective, saves you money. You're not constantly training people. Terrific people over there at RockitCareers.com. ROCKIT Careers.com. You can reach them at 636-778-2419, 636-778-2419. And again, if you hate your job, if you're out of work, if you just can't do it one more day, you can't do it. I can't work at this job another day. I hate it. You've got to look at RockitCareers.com. They will help you launch a new career. Find out what you love and have Rockit Careers, RockitCareers.com, put it in action for you. There it is on the screen, 636-778-2419. Employer or employee, let Mitch and Brian take care of you. They've been at this for a long time. Great people, great network, coast to coast. Doesn't matter where you're at, where you live. Look up RockitCareers.com. They are the best in class. JonesWater.com.
JonesWater.com. Looks like Mitch is going on Jeff's show tomorrow.
Did my friend get in here? Did Rick Bavetz? He said he sent you an email. Will you send him an email?
Let me see. I didn't even know he was coming on today.
Yeah, I screwed that up. He's going to be mad at me again.
He did not send me an email, but he did send me a text earlier. There it is. Yeah, please send email. Yep.
Yeah, get him popped up and ready. He's probably listening going, what are they doing? I'm supposed to be on at 11 o'clock. JonesWater.com, JonesWater.com, 636-899-1040. You'll be the filter or you'll buy the filter. I'm just going to make this nice and simple for you. You cannot have a healthy life with funky air and funky water in your home or business. You just can't do it. You're constantly going to have ailments. You're going to have respiratory issues, skin issues, nasal issues, stuffed up noses, little slight headaches. You're breathing funky air in that stale home of yours, and or you're cooking and cleaning and drinking nasty water. Clean air, clean water, air filtration systems, water filtration systems. Go to our guy, JonesWater.com. Been at it since 1995. Did I say that last time? Let me put a little highlight on that because he gets mad at me if I don't say 1995. JonesWater.com, 636-899-1040, 636-899-1040. If you want to do business with Everett, now this is a local guy in Missouri, St. Charles County, Lincoln, Franklin, Warren, St. Louis, and Jefferson. If you go to the east side, the dark side, Madison, Monroe, Jersey, and St. Clair, JonesWater.com. You'll be the filter or you'll buy the filter. 636-899-1040. And should we do Carrington Financial before he jumps on?
Let's do it. I just sent him the link and blamed you, threw you under the bus, Rob. Let him know.
I'm going to blame you as soon as he gets on him. As soon as he gets on, I'm going to blame you. Carrington Financial, your caring advisor. He is never 40 minutes late to a meeting. Never, ever. Rick Bavetz, 314-6. There he is, that handsome mug. 314-671-0525. Financial planning expert. Biblical principles with your money. He's done a tremendous job for us. And he says, Rob, he goes, whether it's a second, third, fourth, or fifth opinion, I do everything different. I'm not your run-of-the-mill cookie-cutter financial planner. I have a different idea of how to grow money. I can only tell you he's been incredibly successful with our money. Biblical principles, Rick Bavetz, 314-671-0525. And I have to read his script for just once because this is what he wants to get across. He said, Rob, the dominance of big brokerage firms and wirehouses has given even above average investors the impression that there is no alternative, that their choices are limited, and that switching to another advisor or firm wouldn't make much difference in the outcome. Carrington Financial offers investors the alternative approach they have been seeking. Carrington Financial, your caring advisor. 314-671-0525. 314-671-0525. And then we'll do the other two after we get Rick on. Is Rick on yet, or should we knock it out?
Nope, he's not here yet. Let's knock him out real quick.
All right, let's do the other two. GraceHauling.com, GraceHauling.com, GraceHauling.com. Outstanding customer service. Here we just, I got to respond to Rick.
I just texted him and sent the email. Rob's sending a text right now, guys. It says, Isaiah did it. So sorry, he's a dummy. It's his fault.
Was Isaiah's fault. He's a millennial and they can't be trusted. GraceHauling.com, GraceHauling.com, GraceHauling.com. Outstanding customer service, competitive pricing. Again, if you're in the commercial business, you're going to see Grace Hauling trucks and cans and dumpsters all over the area. And you would say, why is that? It is because he is a good man who does great business. There he is with his lovely wife. Commercial business, 2, 4, 6, and 8-yard dumpsters. They've been around since 1998. I asked Gary, I said, what do you want me to say about your business? He said, Rob, but for the grace of God, I would not have such a thriving business. And by the way, Isaiah, this came to him late in life.
Wow.
This came to him very late in life. He's just a really wonderful person. He does a lot of good things for the people out in St. Charles County and around the state of Missouri. Just a terrific guy. If you're
There's a guy that goes to my church that's like that in Florida, and he's sold a business for, I think, like, I don't know, $100 million or something like that. And it was like commercial trash business.
That's where this is heading. I mean, he's got a real healthy business there. If you're a residential customer, trash, recyclables, yard waste, and bulk pickups, my man, Gary and Karen Schneider, but for the grace of God, they would not have such a thriving business. GraceHauling.com. GraceHauling.com. GraceHauling.com for all of your rubbish and trash needs. GraceHauling.com. And then finally, when it's lunchtime, Isaiah.
Oh, yeah.
Time. It is Mo's time.
Hey, Mo.
Hey, Mo.
For the old listeners, right?
I want to get taken off the air for copyright, but I could sing it for you. Mo's Pizza. God owns the place. He just works there. If you're in the Washington, Missouri area, you know about Mo's already. It is a landmark in Washington, Missouri. Great pizza and salad bar, delicious sandwiches, chicken wings, and the best ice cream. It is so fantastic. Mo's Pizza. When it's time for lunch, it's time for Mo's. And if you have any kind of banquet upcoming, if you have any get-together where people are going to, you need some space and you want it to feel like family, you want to be treated old school, where people actually care about how they take care of you and whether you're going to have a good time, it is Mo's Pizza. Birthday parties, anniversaries, political meetings, Bible studies, doesn't matter. It is Mo's Pizza. Mo's Pizza, Mo's Pizza. God owns the place. He just works there at the corner of Grand and 5th Street. Get there. All right.
We got our man, Rick Bavetz, in the lobby waiting for us.
Rick wants to, what's Rick got me going on today? Sovereigns Alliance and Finance is what he's jumping up on the screen. Rick Bavetz. Everybody knows Rick Bavetz. Like, yeah. It's like Elvis. When Elvis walks into a nobody goes, Elvis is in the room, right? Rick Bavetz, there he is. The king.
Minus sideburns.
What's going on, Rick? Sorry about being late. That was Isaiah's fault.
I believe that. Not.
I thought that was really good. We had two good ones today because I love having you on. I think that when people start to get familiar with you, they're going to really like what you have to say because you're a very thought out person. You're just a person who studies everything.
I could listen to him for 3 hours straight.
I do at times. I get him on. I remember thinking to him about a month ago. I brought this to Rick's attention. I said, Rick, you should probably just be a regular on the show. I said, because every time I talk to you, it ends up being a 2-hour conversation. I get caught up in what you're saying, and you're basically doing a show for me. Why don't you just do it where we can have a conversation about it? Now, you might not agree with Rick. Rick, you got to remember, got to have thick skin when you get into politics, right? Because people don't agree with me either, and they throw the knives and the arrows, and it just is what it is when you have an opinion. But what are we talking about today? You said you want to talk about, where is it? I wrote it down. Sovereign Alliance and Finance. I'm not even sure what that means because we didn't have a chance to talk about it because I was in bed when you texted me last night. But what's your subject today? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, I think that the Sovereign Alliance is just really the backdrop, in terms of what is a sovereign alliance. I mean, that's where you have a nation state aligning maybe with another nation state, right? So you have these sovereign nation states and they're coalescing. I mean, I see that.
NATO?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Is it NATO? You mean like NATO?
No, that would be more that's quite different. I mean, what I'm talking about is more of a nation state is more of a bottom up type of sovereignty where the people are more, populist. The people are more involved and able to control what's happening in their country, at least to some degree. And the ways that the economies work in nation states. I mean, it's no accident that that empire has been trying to get rid of nation states for the last 125 years, right? So all of the things that we've seen going back to maybe the Civil War would be the first one. They tried in 1812 with the War of 1812. The British tried to get back in here, and then they created a fifth column in the 1820s and 30s, starting with the Scottish Rite, where they started developing a fifth column. Refers to the infiltration of political and intelligence-based operatives that would then try to erode the power of the people that were in charge, right? So that's what the fifth column is designed to do. It's like what we see today. Everybody in the bureaucracy that works against our president, that's the fifth column.
Right, so the government you can't get rid of because they're just embedded in Washington, D.C., like they are in Jefferson City and around the state capitals.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so the whole point of how this operates really is just this notion that when you have a nation state and it starts to develop some prosperity because of creating an economy that works for the person standing on the ground instead of the government itself, or instead of the oligarchs, then there is an effort to try to disrupt that. And so, I see some heavy patterns and a lot of signaling coming from Trump that's bringing, at least, we don't know what the ultimate outcome is, but it's definitely happening that we're aligning with China and with Russia, and we're trying to bring these countries together. There's a lot of things that are being done, I think, behind the scenes, that if you on the surface you see one thing like Venezuela, or you see another thing like with Colombia. You see the White House making an announcement in November. There were a lot of things put onto the White House's website in November that people should go back and look at all of the different executive orders. And if you start to look at some of the stuff that's being done, like, for instance, one thing I'm referring to is Trump's aggressive executive order to go after the Muslim Brotherhood as the principal root of all the money laundering and drug trafficking. So, why is that important to what we've been talking about, and why is that important to economics? Well, the principal root for all of the money coming out of arms and drugs and terrorism is flowing through that one. He called it the root. And where does that root lead? And it leads right back to empire, to the crown, right? So if it looks like he's interrupting all of the, Venezuela is another good example, and Colombia now more recently, where he's going after the money flow and the money laundering that is actually supporting empire, right? And so if he's trying to cut that off and move away from that, so that's at least the appearance of what I see and what other people see, I think, too. So if you think of all of our banks and literally all of our banks have a certain amount of money inside the bank that is money laundered or money laundering activity, right? And so if you remove that, you're going to see a contraction. And if you see a contraction, that's something that flows everywhere, right? So it's fundamentally going to affect everybody as this thing might happen. It might not be as painful as we think, but it could be painful. And we're seeing a lot of things happening in the economy, especially this month, there's just a number of things that keep hitting that we start to get a little bit concerned about. And, I've seen like the canary maybe isn't dead yet, the first one, but, he's starting to get woozy, right? So the canary in the coal mine is like literally like we're looking at that and we're going, okay, maybe we ought to pack up and leave the mine. And
what did you see? What did you see? What kind of things happened recently that caught your attention?
Well, we could start in just looking at the real estate side, right? And so, I mean, really, it's if we think of first the AI aspect, right? That's a pretty huge thing, right? And so alarm bells are going off all over AI, and so I'm not sure how much people know about OpenAI and how they're structured, but they made an announcement towards the end of last month, about a month ago, that they missed their revenue targets and that they missed the user growth targets, and that they might not be able to pay for the future computing contracts if the revenue doesn't actually increase. Now the revenue is falling, and the S&P is very much peaked, right? It keeps hitting records, and it's been peaked for quite some time at this range. But the CFO of OpenAI said that they needed $1.5 trillion of new revenue to come in to fund the funding obligations that they see right in front of them. Now, understand that OpenAI doesn't actually have anything, right? They just continue to spend money. And where does the money come from, right? It's coming from the Mag 7, let's just say principally from Mag 7 stocks. So you're talking about all of the majors like, Meta and Oracle and Facebook or not Facebook, Microsoft. So you're seeing all of these Mag 7 stocks, NVIDIA, that are basically making capital expenditures in sort of a circular self-reinforcing loop. So they're giving this, they're loaning the money to OpenAI, and then OpenAI turns around and buys, like, for example, from Amazon, who's another one of the Mag 7s, they're going to buy web services. So if they gave them $5 billion or loaned them $5 billion, then they turn around and they're going to buy web services. So it looks like, good for Amazon's books, and it looks like OpenAI has another $5 billion. It's not real, right? So this OpenAI, just doesn't have the support, and they're not seeing the revenue come in like before, and they're not seeing these loans are starting to get very weak. And if you start looking at the debt ratios of different companies, it's starting to look a little dangerous. And the S&P 500, when you look at that, 55% of the growth between, let's say, for the last 2 full years, 2023 to 2025, over half of the growth in the S&P 500 was because of the Mag 7 stocks. So it's a high concentration. We call it concentration risk. You can't put all your money into a certain sector or a certain type of stock without creating more risk for yourself. The diversification needs to be broad across a lot of different lines. And just to kind of admonish or give a little disclosure here, this isn't investment advice for people. If they want investment advice, they'd have to call me on the phone. I am very qualified to provide investment advice, but we're talking about just observing what's happening right now. But it's getting very dangerous. And so people who've been chasing these peaks and buying the dips and things like that, the fat lady is backstage. And so we want to be very careful about, how people are proceeding, and they might be caught up in maybe heavy tax positions too, because of the fact that they might have a lot of growth based on the last couple of years, especially, or even longer, go back all the way to the very beginning of 2023. So they've seen a lot of, 85% growth over that time period. But but really only about 39% of that was not the Mag 7. So that's cutting your growth in half, right, basically. So if you think of it in those terms, people need to be prepared for not having that type of thing. And if there's a contraction in the market, it could be significant. So and so that's not a rotation. Rotation just means like one sector is emerging over another. Energy is doing really well, while finance might not be doing well, or healthcare might not be doing well, and then finance does well. So you move from energy over to the other. Those are rotations.
I heard somebody once say that no matter what's going on in the economy, there's a way to win. Is that true?
Well, absolutely. You're going to see indications of that, but what you're seeing is very large players trying to accumulate cash to take advantage of opportunity. Not that we could all do that, right? If your average person could set aside, an extra 500,000 right now, just in case the real estate market were to collapse, because the real estate market is struggling. And so which I'll talk about in a second, but when you start to imagine something like Blackstone, who was developing a real estate fund that was approaching $100 billion, why were they saving a bunch of cash? And, the stated purpose, according to them, was because we expect that there's going to be a correction in the real estate market. And they don't say what from. We kind of can know that there are some engineered things happening. Like in California, for example, they're trying to get rid of what's called Prop 13, which is a cap on property taxes at 1.25%. And so if you only have 1.25% property taxes, and they repeal Prop 13 and raise property taxes to 3 or 4% because they're completely broke in California, they're insolvent as a state. And they make it look pretty, but and when you go and lay on the beach, you don't really think about how insolvent the government is in California. But but I mean, it's beautiful. I lived there nearly my entire life, and so it's one of those things where you're jonesing for certain things, like every single kind of restaurant you could possibly ever imagine within 15 or 20 minutes from where you are, right? Anywhere.
No doubt. I worked out in Manhattan Beach.
Have a grocery store where you just walk from your house.
Yeah,
right?
it's like heaven on earth. Absolutely.
Trader Joe's. I mean, I have to drive an hour to get to a Trader Joe's right now. So
yeah.
So those are the things that you look at, but then they're broke. So what if they were to do that? If, let's say you bought your house in 1980, or I bought a house in California. My first house was in the early 90s. And I bought it for a song, but I bought it from somebody who bought it like 15 or 20 years before me for about $40,000 or $50,000, right? And she was elderly, and she was sitting on a very large value increase, but her taxes were kept pretty low, right? And if all of a sudden you were facing a 400% increase in your property tax, and you're living on a fixed income, living in a beautiful neighborhood, that was Pacific Palisades,
all the time.
I would, you'd be like, I can't stay here. It's a forced sale, right? They used to call it blockbusting back in the day, like in Brooklyn and places like that, where they would go into a minority neighborhood and they would do something to create the urgency to leave. A lot of times they were just red tagging buildings, even though they didn't need, they were perfectly livable. And they would say, we'll build you another place, within the next year. And then they never did that. Right. And that's a very well-known practice that was outlawed. But this is another way to do blockbusting, for people. And then you have these big companies waiting in the wings but this AI, just kind of think of it, as, the ticking time bomb in the economy is all of the spend that's happening around AI is not like, it's not like investment with real dollars. This is borrowed money. Everybody's borrowing money to invest in AI. And the hope is that the revenue will follow, right? And that's really not a good model to follow, right? And so if AI, or if OpenAI is based on what they said a month ago, that's some pretty serious issues there isn't another buyer in the system, right? That's going to go around and buy all of this stuff from these companies, like the web services from Amazon, or the computing chips, or whatever it is that they're buying from all these other guys, right? And they're swapping really the same dollars, right? Because it's just a circular system. And I could show you a diagram here in a second.
I was going to ask you real fast. I was going to ask you, because you were talking about California. I'm starting to see that happen around the country, where property values are raising so fast that if you bought your house 30, 40 years ago and your significant other died and you're bringing in $3,200 in Social Security and you're on a fixed income because you're 83, 84 years old, that seems like it would be un-American not to be able to pay the taxes on your home. But this is happening. I mean, I'm fully aware of this happening in California.
It's incredible. I mean, foreclosures, this is just, where I would say, there's a couple of places to start with this, but I mean, we could look at maybe that first, and then we can look at some of the investments around real estate. But the native real estate, where people actually live in the homes, the foreclosure filings skyrocketed 26% in the first quarter. So that's really, really serious. There's 119,000 foreclosures so far this year. Most of those are between people who bought their homes between 2021 and 2025. So, like just barely post COVID, as people were moving all over the place. And, you're seeing very high interest rates. So these aren't the greatest mortgages. The property taxes are going up, but we've seen insurance rates double. And in some cases like California, you're seeing $20,000 and $30,000 a year fire and property insurance. The other side to it too is, where are you seeing a lot of these foreclosures? In homeowners association, high homeowners association areas. Like
on it.
Very big area for homeowners associations. I'm not a fan of homeowners associations.
Me neither.
They have a lot of control. And so, then you got utilities are rising, right? So when you think of people who maybe thought, okay, I got a fixed rate mortgage, so I'm locked in, but they're in an escrow with their property taxes and their insurance are inside that escrow. And so that's still rising, right? And then now their utilities are rising. The mortgage rates are around $2,900 a year. I'm sorry. The insurance is around $2,900 a year. That's up 12%, $4,400 a year in taxes. But for last year, this just blew me away, this statistic. Homeowners Association filed 285,000 liens in 2025.
Really?
Again, property owners, and they're foreclosing on these properties. I mean, if you don't pay your homeowners association dues because you can't afford it, and if you have a $30 a month, my wife is like, yeah, the homeowners association is only $20 or $30, and I go, but they have the capacity to raise that, right? It's just like the $200 SBR tax. Like they dropped it from $1,000 to $200, and everybody was like, yay. And it's like, okay, but they can crank that puppy back up to $2,000, right? And so that's the thing that people need to look at, is what's wrapped around your mortgage. Most people always try to get a fixed rate mortgage, but it's the escrow accounts and the homeowners association dues and the property taxes and the insurance and things like that people need to be concerned about. And all of this data center stuff is driving utility and water and things like that to a degree that we're not happy seeing any of those things go up.
They say it's not. Rick, they say it's not. It doesn't affect water or energy prices or anything else, which seems counterintuitive. I like that you're laughing.
I'm not sure who to believe then if they're saying that. So, it's one of those things where, I try to stay out of, in some sense, where finance is concerned. I'm a secular. I'm secular from politics in some sense. I mean, I don't consider myself any kind of I'm not a party affiliated individual, because I just can't really rely on what a politician's saying he's going to do and then what he ends up doing, or she. And it's so for me, I think it's about, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir with people getting involved, people like us getting involved who just really want, the nature of the economics for the average individual to improve. We're going to have to all get involved. And I don't mean talking about it and doing things like that. I'm talking about the 30,000 open positions that are available in the United States right now, things like that, where you can go and just, there's nobody, there's like 5 seats open on just where I live right this minute. There's 3 open city council seats. I was going to do that in March, and my wife's like, don't you dare, we're moving to St. Louis. So I'm like, okay, fine. So she was right. I should wait. Right. And wherever we end up, then that's where I'll start, which will be soon. Right. But the point with real estate, I mean, you're seeing cracks big time. The one of the biggest real estate investment trusts, which is basically a package of mortgages that obviously that people are paying those mortgages and that's producing income. Right. And so the investors who put their money in that are who? Retirement people, or people get, over a certain age. There's a lot of IRAs that have, we call them REITs, REIT. This is called Starwood. It's a very high profile type of real estate fund. It's $22 billion in real estate assets with a total of about $125 billion in overall assets. And they stopped all money coming out of their fund. The investors are not getting paid. And so that just happened again at the end of last month. And there's 600 properties that are in that fund. It's not a hedge fund like a Manhattan hedge fund. This is retirement money, and people have these allocations in their IRAs. And so when you halt distributions, it's because there have been people seeking to maybe leave the fund, right? Why are people leaving the fund? Well, because of some of the things we just talked about with rising expenses, the inflation, the inflationary environment that we live in right now. So people say, I want my money back, and they're saying, no, you can't have your money. And then as far as like pulling your money out entirely, right? But now the distributions itself, the income has gone down about 25%. So if you were earning, let's say it was 20 grand a year out of that REIT, now you're going to earn 15. And, obviously inflation is going this way. And if your income is going that way, you're in the wrong dynamic there. And when you start thinking about this, and you think about other types of financial institutions, banks, other kinds of funds, everybody was pretty much banking on rates falling, right? And I think that's been something that, everybody's been pushing on Powell. Well, for the first time in 113 years, did we ever see a Fed chairman actually stay on the board before now? Has that ever happened before?
Stay on after stepping down from being the chairman. It's never happened. No, Powell is still on the board. He's still a governor. So, and Warsh. I see what you mean. I was misunderstanding what you said. So you're saying that Jerome Powell leaves as Fed chair, but now he's on the board of governors.
He's on the board of governors. He's still in the Fed. So, and Warsh, who is now the new chairman. I mean, honestly, you look at that guy for his whole entire history, and he's never been about cutting. So, and so many people thought, well, he's friends with Trump, or some kind of relationship exists there, some maybe special relationship like the one we have with Britain, right? And we would be like, okay, well, I don't think so. This guy's going to be probably raising rates, if anything, right? What do we need to have happen? We need to have the interest rates higher, right? Because the risk of debt is higher, and the inflation is persisting. So in order to get that to come down, you don't flood the market with money and cut rates. You know what I mean? It's not something that works well. That makes it worse. That's why we're in the situation we're in now. So I don't think he was ever going to cut rates. And so what we're facing with this is where rates stay high and investors want their money because they have higher expenses, and then weakening cash flows are happening. So you have this trifecta of things that are occurring that are creating this high amount of pressure, right? And there's a lot of stuff. You've talked a lot about MMTLP.
Yep.
And a couple of times, things have come up, I think, in some of your discussions around that with regards to people's 401ks, 457s. I'm not sure how many, the kind of listeners that we have. I mean, if you're in a public, like a city government or some kind of a public institution that you work for, you're a public servant, you're going to have a 457 or a 403B if you're working in a school or something like that. Whereas a corporate level, and sometimes in public sector, people have a 401k. It just depends on the position of the person, but they're all the basic same variety of investment vehicle, which is where you put your contributions out of your pay stub. They defer the taxes typically into the future, and you put it into various funds. But there's this thing called CIT or collective investment trusts that have been emerging and growing in favor, let's say, within this model. The 401k model has to have investments that people invest in, which are generally mutual funds, or historically have been mutual funds. But these CITs have been emerging because they've been it's lower cost. But it comes with less disclosure. It comes with a very opaque kind of a dynamic, and the structural risk inside of one of these CITs is hard for the person who owns that to see, and they don't have a requirement. As you know, and a lot of your listeners might know that I'm a fiduciary, and when you govern a 401k, you have to act in the best interest of the participant, just like I have to act in the best interest of my client. And what does that really mean, the best interest thing? It sounds, like, oh, you're going to act in my best interest. But there's other things that are at play. Like, for instance, my interests. Like, doesn't everyone have interests? Yes, everybody has interests. And with a pure fiduciary, the fiduciary is obligated to set aside. So I'm obligated to set aside my own interests, which include earning a living, right? That's my primary interest, to have a business and to practice and live in the world. You have to earn a living, right? It's fundamental. But I still have to set that interest aside in favor of the interest of my client that's sitting in front of me, who might be different than the client who just left. Right. And so I have to assess what that client is exposed to, what their future looks like, what are their goals, those types of things, and then really come to understand in a relational way, like, how can I help this person? If we were in relationship, which we really have to be in order to know what's really going on with them, then I can know what their best interests, where those best interests lie, and what they need the most. I can help. I can tell them, don't do this because that's probably bad for you. Like, I never recommend people use those real estate investment trusts. Sometimes if you're in a 401k, you don't have the choice of a collective investment trust. Guess who uses collective investment trusts quite a bit? Pension funds, or certain kinds of pensions where it's a 401k, and then they're like fire departments all over California. They have their money in all they have the choice to pick from is collective investment trusts. That's fairly new, 10, 15 years, right? And so when you're thinking of it in those terms, these people have been led down a path where they don't really even understand. I'm part of a fiduciary roundtable group. We do a lot of publishing. You guys can see my articles written on our website and stuff like that. We a lot of times write collective articles together as a team, and we each contribute something to that article. And we're talking a lot about these things and how this is like not good for people. And the fiduciaries that might take over these accounts are at incredible risk of the liability. But if there's no money, if you get a class action lawsuit and you're suing, just like with MMTLP, you're suing a defunct institution, are you ever going to get your money? You know, it's just gone. And I think that, you know, in the long and the short of this is that these things are not designed. They're not even the regulatory body that oversees the CITs is not the SEC. It's you know, the Office of the Comptroller, which is banking, right? And so they're not designed to regulate this type of stuff. Mutual funds are over here under the SEC, and CITs are under the OCC. And so they're bringing in, what are they doing? They're bringing in private credit, which is all of this money that's growing in large S with regards to these AI companies. It's like everybody's on this. It's one of the most astonishing things that I've ever seen, really, when it comes to.
Do you think it's propping up the economy just in general, Rick? The AI, all the money going into AI is kind of propping up the country, and I'm not even sure the citizens want this.
Yeah, it's all machine-based buying right now. So all of the trading that's happening, you know, machines bought $86 billion in 5 days, right? And so the S&P 500 was like warning that, you know, there's bank exposure and hedge fund exposure, because that's not a stable way, you know, that's not a thoughtful way, right? It's just looking at things, you know, does this look like the trajectory makes sense to buy this? You know, and is it possible for that to operate on a scale that can keep that from collapsing? I don't think so. And people are just buying derivatives of that, right? So they're far removed. If you have a 401k, it might take a day or two for you to get your money. I mean, you know this because we talk about this regarding your guys' stuff, like where, you know, you have to do it in the morning if you want to try to get it to take credit, but to credit your account that same day. But that's just you making a trade inside of an account. And then meanwhile, what if there are thousands of people that are all of a sudden making those requests? They can't keep up. They just simply can't keep up. It might take 2 weeks, right, to get out of something in a situation like that. So we're taking, you know, there's another thing that's going on too, where you're seeing bank charge-offs, write-offs. JP Morgan is writing off all things left and right, going back into last year, where if you remember Tricolor, the subprime car loan lender, they gave them a couple $100 million. I mean, they basically charged off a couple of $100 million. Just earlier this month, about 2 weeks ago, JP Morgan wrote off $500 million. You know, they just cut the credit line for KKR, which is one of the larger of the private credit companies. And then you're also seeing DOJ is now going in and they're starting investigations into fraud, right, for this company called Apollo, that they basically just asked for $2 billion worth of investments. What for? A dislocation fund, which means that we expect that things are going to, you know, fly apart, and we want to have a cash reserve to take advantage of all of the cheap stuff that we'll be able to buy.
It's a good life if you get it.
This is one of the hugest private credit exposed companies on the planet, is Apollo. And, you know, and it's a very famous saying. It's Baron von Rothschild said, when there's blood in the streets, buy property. So if it's beneficial to buy property, if there's blood in the streets, is there a way we can have blood in the streets? Is really the way that the oligarchs.
Does that mean war?
Huh?
Does that mean war?
It means any kind of blood in the streets just means when there's chaos, when there's panic. You know, it could be war. You know, it could be economic. You know, the Depression, that was blood in the streets. You had people that were unable to pay their. I mean, at one point in 1932 or so, like 2/3 of the state of Mississippi was put up for auction. That's how many properties had just foreclosed on. 2/3 of the entire state.
And then what do big business come in and buy them all up?
And banks just came in and bought everything. You know, the JP Morgan, the man, not the bank, the man, went in and they had all the, you know, they just had a windfall from the 1920s where they rug pulled everybody in 1929. And so, you know, when they have all that money, that the wealth transfer that they took that they took over, right? And so then everybody collapses and they buy up everything. That's how these things work. They're engineered.
That's going to happen again?
Well, look, what was distinct about that point in time, and then what happened right after that was Roosevelt, in his first 100 days, enacted the Glass-Steagall, the Banking Act of 1933, which basically made it illegal for banks and bankers to take the money on deposit and go and speculate in risky investments.
They're doing it again.
And so that went on the books in 1933. They threw people in jail.
Right?
Huh?
Dodd-Frank took it away, right?
In 1999, Clinton repealed that.
Right? Didn't Dodd-Frank replace the regulatory?
Dodd-Frank came after later,
right.
But Dodd-Frank is a different conversation. But the point that you want to make is that basically you had a period between 1933 and, let's say, while Roosevelt was still alive, to 1945, where we had some of the most unbelievably prosperous. I mean, it was probably the single biggest period of prosperity in our country's history, aside from the Reconstruction after the Civil War. It was the period from 1933 to 1938, where there were 50,000 infrastructure projects that were built. The Tennessee Valley Authority, the Hoover Dam, just to give you a couple of examples, right? Big, huge bridges everywhere, factories. The Tennessee Valley Authority went from just rural squalor to the single biggest manufacturing center of the entire globe in just a few years, right? So these things were done very fast and I would say that World War II really began in the early 1920s, as far as the pieces were being laid, the groundwork was being seeded, right? So for this to happen, but Roosevelt was that. If we didn't have all that infrastructure in that 5-year period, we would have never been able to participate in World War II ever. We didn't have the manufacturing base, right? But as soon as Roosevelt died, there was a very significant effort to begin chipping away at Glass-Steagall. And so it started, with very small things, and then it moved into we got to the 1980s. Greenspan took over as the chairman. And understand, John Maynard Keynes was drastically at odds. I mean, he was basically a mathematician. He really wasn't an economist, and he's the one that built an investment. The investment theory that's operating today is Keynesian, they call it, based on John Maynard Keynes. He was a British subject.
Didn't they basically say debt was irrelevant because we can always pay our debts? Because
in 1987, Greenspan, who was a patron, let's call it, of Keynesian economics, he came in, and what did he do? He said, "Oh, let's make mortgage-backed securities. Let's make junk bonds legal, and so that everybody can flood their money into these worthless investments." And really, we started moving during that period between, let's say, 1945 and 1980. We started moving away from the physical economy. If you look at the manufacturing in that period, it started to fall off significantly, and we were operating on free trade. And you can look up, I didn't send it to Isaiah, but I pulled up some clips from Trump, talking about free trade back in like the early 80s and the middle 80s. And he was being interviewed, and they were talking about, you should run for president. And it'd be like, yeah, maybe it wouldn't be me, but whatever. He was having those kinds of conversations with Mike Wallace, or Oprah. He was on a lot of channels, you know, especially in the later 80s, and he was bagging on Reagan quite a bit. You know, just not really happy with the economy, but principally around trade. He you know, he was very upset about Japan at first because, you know, we couldn't sell anything in Japan, but we were being flooded with Japanese cars. And he's like, try to go to Japan, try to take you know, your Fords and your Buicks over to Japan. You're not going to be able to do it, you know, and so you know, that was a big problem, and then that moved to China. And then it became other countries as well, like Canada, which, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but Canada is not even a country. So, you know, you have this Commonwealth of Britain that's operating like a country, but they're not a country. Everything they do in Canada, they have to get permission and the blessing from the Fount of Honors in Britain. So it's not a real deal there. And so. Really? Yeah, it's
How does that work?
It's a fake country.
Now you got my attention. How does that work exactly?
Well, it's just like the Falkland Islands or something. I mean, it's no different than it's any Commonwealth. So they're subjects of the British system. And so if there was an election and actually this happened, I'd have to look up the exact date, but it happened fairly recently when they elected a particular prime minister or whatever, and the Crown said, no, you can't, you got to have a new election. We don't like that guy. So the Queen or whoever, I can't remember the exact person.
So Canada is subject to the Crown of England?
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So you didn't know that, Rob? Yeah.
It's fundamental to our system that where when you start to look under, so there's a really great movie for any of your listeners. You know, reading books, you know, I think people have lost the ability to read books. If people could read some books, you know, I would point you to Dope Inc., DOPE, like, you know, dope, you know, your brain on dope. Dope Inc., which goes back a couple hundred years. And it talks about the drug trade that Britain still controls today. So when I was talking about the Muslim Brotherhood, and you talk about Colombia right now, they're in discussions with Bedros right now, you know, economic discussions, and you know, all this stuff that's going on with Venezuela. You know, I almost feel like the Maduro, that was more of a rescue operation rather than a capture. Because some of the stuff that Maduro was doing, he was prosecuting people, and he was turning some heads and putting himself in danger because he's cutting off the money flow. The money laundering basically emanates from all of these countries through the Caribbean straight back to Britain. So the movie you could watch is called The Spider's Web. It's only like, I have it on my thing here. Yeah, it's 1 hour and 18 minutes long. So it's a very, very in-depth, you can find it on YouTube. And so if I can, let's see, share my.
You got to watch the George Orwell one on Prime.
Pardon me?
You got to watch the George Orwell one on, I think it's Prime. Isaiah and I looked it up yesterday. It was terrific.
Yeah, so we've got, you know, this is what
and by the way, I got to get this out of you. So you see the Trump moves, the executive orders, and the moves that he is making to draw us away and give us sovereignty away from the crown. Is that kind of what you're starting to see take shape globally?
Yes, I mean all of these moves, and these go back to the first term. So he was doing things in his first term, you know, it's laying out, you know, a foundation, let's say, and he was being obviously disrupted like we've maybe never seen. Right. I mean, I was a kid during Watergate. Most of what happened with Watergate was lawfare, and they entrapped. And really, he didn't do. You know, people might argue, but there's I can't remember the name of it, but it's a documentary. I think it's a paywall. You have to pay for this documentary. But the guy did write a book. He was in the Nixon administration, and he was there when these phone calls were being done with regards to getting Nixon to resign, and his advisors convinced him that he had broken the law when he actually hadn't broken the law, and that was the reason that he resigned. Was you broke the law, and so this documentary is fascinating. It was the intelligence community, and he was doing things around. If you remember, Bretton Woods was being, and gold was happening. And they were really wanting to move to the petrodollar. And there was just a whole lot of stuff going on, and Nixon was not playing ball. And that's what you want to understand, is if your government is populated with Rhodes Scholars who've been indoctrinated at Oxford, you're going to have them come into your. It's a natural like, what do you call it? Sort of self-replacing form of infiltration. So when people get older, there's new people graduating out of Oxford and out of Rhodes scholarships that are going into government. That's really the principal thing. A famous Rhodes Scholar, nobody really knows that he was a Rhodes Scholar, was Chris Christopherson, the singer.
Oh yeah, from Oxford.
Huh?
From Oxford.
He went to Oxford, and he was actually a Rhodes Scholar, and he didn't want to get involved. It was distasteful as far as he was concerned. So, taking down governments and infiltrating, foreign affairs, and when you have the Council on Foreign Relations and the League of Nations, and you have all of these groups that all of them emanate out of Britain, right? And so there's very interesting things happening around Colombia. Imagine 80% of the cocaine that is worldwide, that's sold worldwide, comes from Colombia. So you can imagine how much money that is, and it's all illicit money, and it's used in intelligence. It's used all over the place. So when you think of this, I'll pull it right up here. You can see here's dope ink. That's what it looks like. Britain's opium war against the U.S. Right? The fentanyl war that we've been facing it's from Executive Intelligence Review. And you'll look at this history here, which is going back to the first opium wars in China, which is in the early 1800s, right? And how this has been in organized crime. Part of why, what Kennedy was after is he was trying to go after organized crime, right? It goes through all of this stuff. It's very well laid out. And even if you read, just in sections, like part 1, the history, and you read 30 or 40 pages, I mean, it is incredibly powerful to understand how this framework works. And
you got to tell me, how does the world work out? So if we are breaking away from the British crown, we're going to have a multipolar world. Do you think that's ultimately better, or do you think that these multipolar world leaders are really under one roof and they can kind of use theater and war and fighting to kind of?
I think that they can do lots of stuff. They control so many different facets. It's like an octopus with 50 legs, right? It's not, but if we're able to do something, I think that, people don't want to admit this, but Americans would not want to admit this, and this might not be a popular thing to say, but if you're thinking of an arms race with China as an example, which there's this huge psyop and promotional propagandic kind of attitude about China for many for decades, right? And the British government crushed China. I mean, they killed so many people in so many different countries. If you were to stack up their global death rate, I would argue that there's one person that I would name that is responsible for more deaths than, let's say, Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great or any of the Pol Pot or Stalin or any of the people that we always name that come from the communist side of things. This one guy who's John Templeton, who's known as Palmerston, Lord Palmerston. Lord Palmerston only served as the British foreign. He was like the head of the Foreign Office, right, in Britain, and then this is in the 1830s and 40s and 50s or whatever, and then he died in 1865. And he was a prime minister at that time, but a horrendous individual, and he was responsible for more deaths than anybody else. And you could look him up. I mean, he is just a savage. And so when you think of the ways that this has emanated out, and we look at the propaganda and we try to understand it, I mean, there's just in the same way that we did this in terms of race. We've done this going back to the prairie days with Chinese immigrants, right? And so it's always been this like, oh, these people are lesser than us, right? So that's underneath everything else, right? So
I gotta ask you this though, because on the politics side of it, why do we go about it the way we're doing it? Why don't we just come out why wouldn't President Trump or any of the previous presidents come out and say, listen, we don't like the world the way it's shaped. We're going to reconstruct it in this manner. Why do they have to do
the in your head?
What's that?
You'll get a bullet in your head.
That's all it is. That wouldn't they recognize, like you are, that this
to put the top down, don't go over 20 miles an hour and drive through Daly Plaza. That's what they'll tell you. It's safe.
But wouldn't they recognize that he's doing this anyway? That's been my argument about this philosophy. That
I mean, he does it in a very what appears on the surface to be a chaotic. So he's doing things that are aligning with, let's say, deep state stuff or neocon. He's patronizing their desires, and sometimes these people have so much hubris that they are blinded by that. I mean, that's, again, going back to something like, if you ever watched Silence of the Lamb, right?
Yep.
And I read the books. I was a reader. So I read, Manhunter and Dragon, whatever it was called. I forget the name of the book right this second, but that was the first book, was the original, the male, whatever that detective's name was. He goes in to talk to Hannibal Lecter, and the guy was like, oh, you're so intelligent. I mean, and he was like, why do you say that? And he goes, because you caught me. And he goes, well, I appreciate I'm flattered or whatever, but you were at a disadvantage. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he goes, you're insane. So I mean, I think in some sense, these people do have this level of insanity that exists. These are sociopathic individuals. I mean, these people come through and they get tapped on the shoulder, and it's like, are you interested in famine, war, and plague? Because if you are, then you can come with us, and your life will be made perfect. I mean, that's really the argument for a Rhodes Scholar.
Yeah, I got to get in the club somehow, some way. I got to cut you because we got a call with the website developers here in just a few minutes. Do you want to do next week when you come on? Do you want to do answer questions about finance?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that might be a good thing.
If you're watching right now, take a screenshot of this. Well, I mean, it's recorded, so I think that this is something that you guys should really. This is what I was going to suggest, because these are the things we want to look at. Maybe next time we can talk about this. Start with this. Well, it's just this closed system versus open system, nation state versus empire. And so as we see this, there are characteristics that we will recognize. And so when you recognize, let's say win-lose types of competition, when you recognize these limits on growth, which climate change is a perfect example, but even just the creativity, stunting everyone's creativity, making everybody work these 80 hours per paycheck. You come home and you're tired and you don't have time to create anything, right? That's putting a limit on growth. Adapting to scarcity. So, these oil, the oil being restricted or being released. If you're in California, you would see, why do the gas prices, slow down? Well, they've had some of the refineries are offline. Why are they offline? not having enough electricity. As this arms race is proceeding, I mean, what's happening? We don't have enough electricity to run all these data centers. Do they, how much electricity do they need? Well, apparently it's none, right? Or some people say, oh, they don't need any electricity. So these limits on growth, and it's unipolar, right? And then what's going on over here is multipolar. So when you start to look and you think of who is the sovereign in a closed system, it's the monarch, and it could be the oligarch, it could be, something along those lines, the dictator. But here in a nation state, in an open system, it's the individual retains the sovereignty, and it's based on self-determination and natural rights, which are unalienable, right? And then resources, it's positive sum, win-win, relative limits on growth. And creativity can actually produce solutions to create more growth, right? Expectation of abundance rather than expecting to see scarcity. And all men are created equal instead of this Malthusian, we have to reduce the population, and some people are better than others. So eugenics, John Maynard Keynes was a Malthusian. He was a member of the Eugenics Society. He was, in fact, the treasurer of the Eugenics Society. That's the guy that created our economy. He believed that in limits on growth. So if you have somebody creating your economy that's going to limit your growth, you're going to have the kind of problems that we have today. And so we have to kind of look at. I built this. It's really just a diagram that's on a spreadsheet or whatever, but it's so that people can ping off of things and go, oh, I see population reduction. It's part of the central core of a top-down system, right? It's free trade instead of a protective, which tariffs are principal to protecting your economy. That's all it is, right? It's if you look at the old cartoons from the 1800s about free trade.
1800s.
Look at
cartoons in the papers. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, go look online and look at British free trade cartoons, and then you'll pull it up. And there's one where you see, like it could be like the Monopoly, the same old man on the Monopoly. It's that face, and he's basically grabbing the entire planet. And he's got like a free trade banner on his, or sash on his jacket, or whatever. And that's what free trade is about. It's global domination. It's anything but free. And you can see Trump saying that in the 1987 period, where he's like, it's not free, right? It's the worst form of trade, So and he's not alone. It's like you look back at all of the great periods of economic prosperity, and they were working from this open system. And it's to each and every one of those times that we had that, we were operating on that right side of the page.
You got to send me.
Yeah, I can email it to you. So
close it down, because we got 10 minutes, and then we got a call to I got to get a website.
Yeah. So you guys should know that some of this stuff we can have private conversations about. Individual situations where it relates to the stock market, like we were talking about before. I think that the risk is grave. So I think that people should be reallocating now and not waiting until we see more things happening. There's leaks coming out of the dam, and people are putting their fingers in right now. And so that's really where we need to get busy, making reallocations for people, giving second opinions to people. People are in a what we call a TINA environment, where there is no alternative to stocks. That's TINA. There is no alternative to stocks, and there actually is. And we just have to restructure people so that they can still grow, but not lose the farm. I mean, the whole thing here is about trying to create safety. There's all kinds of non-correlated assets that aren't tied to the stock market and are not tied to interest rates or to even bonds. So we have things that we can do to help to protect people's wealth. I think that they need to fundamentally start at least inquiring and getting active in developing strategies that will work for them going through a phase that we're going to definitely see. You can reach me at my cell phone at 314-671-0525. And my website is yourcaringagent.com. The company is Carrington, and caring for our future is our goal. So that's really, I'm caring for my own future just as much as I want to care for anyone else's. And I think that our families really depend on us to, the people that have a little bit more information about this stuff, need to get out there and start spreading the news that, this is important. So anyway, thanks for having me on. Appreciate you guys.
Next to, so you're 314-671-0525. That's what I have for you.
Yep.
All right. So if you want to get a hold of Rick, 314-671-0525. I think we'll do better at clarifying issues for people. If we have people, like, give people time and say, okay, Rick's going to be on next Tuesday at 11. We'll promote it on social media and say, if you have questions about how to manage your money, he's going to be answering questions for an hour next Tuesday. I think it'd be good because I have a lot of questions. I don't understand much of the markets because I've never cared about money that much, right? But every time I start to bring it up, people are confused right now. Their 401ks are through the roof. We're at 50.400 and something. I just looked at earlier. So people are all excited about it, but is this trepidation that the rug's going to be pulled at the most inopportune time because you're riding this wave up and up and up and up. And traditionally it's always crashed at some point, and you just don't want it to crash at the most inopportune time, which 2008, 2009, that's what happened. So I think people are, they have that in the rearview mirror and they're worried about it. So maybe
markets can't increase. It can't persist in the growth that we're seeing with interest rates staying at this high level. It's the risk of debt and the risk of, the debt instruments is growing too high. Like, in other words, the default risk and the credit risk is so incredibly high. And when you have markets rising and you have that credit risk, you always see a correction at that point. So we're seeing that gap close dramatically, right? And even though the market keeps persisting up, and if people were, like I said, people were expecting rates to drop, and since that's probably not going to happen, there's nothing. It just can't persist. It's not possible. We've not seen that happen. There's not enough money to be borrowed, right?
Gotcha. Yep.
Or printed and borrowed. So,
all right, I'll have my questions ready, and then I'll get all the other people's questions ready, and then we'll have the chat ready for you next Tuesday at 11, and we'll ask all the questions. A bunch of questions from MMTLP, but I don't want to put you into that because I don't know if you're a person who knows all the story of MMTLP. But
I don't know the whole background on that. Maybe more general stuff with regards to just your average everyday person is going to have questions about the mechanics of the market. I think. How is it that it isn't predictive as much as it's more predictive than you would think to if you understand some of the mechanisms as we've been discussing today, but with history, even you can kind of understand that how these things kind of have this seesaw effect, right? And so that's not as hard to see for people, and when you have those understandings, but that takes a long time. So you have to come to people that are experts that have your back too, and I think that's the significant difference for me. I'm going to give you information that based on the information that I have about you, I would be able to give you the best advice for what would be your situation or your situation or your situation. It's
right. What your motives and goals are.
It's really just that's the most important thing is if the person has a specific plan. There's sometimes I've interviewed 25,000 people, so it's with regards to their finances, and so that's a significant body of I only have my own experiences, but now I have the experiences of all those people as well in a download, right? So I can pull from that. With regards to, I'm not going to ever say that I've seen everything because every once in a while I'm surprised.
I was going to say pretty close. All right, Rick, we'll see you next Tuesday at 11. We'll do a little promo together, and maybe one of these days we'll just do a quick show together on your platforms, and I'll interview you about money because I don't know anything, so I got to be like most people, I would think.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah, thanks so much.
You got it, brother. Enjoy the day. I'll be in touch with you soon.
You too. Bye.
All right, everybody. We run late again. Poor Isaiah. Isaiah probably ran to an alderman's meeting. No, there he's still. I
Nope,
thought you were
I'm here.
taking off on me. He's fascinating, man. His ability to retain information blows my mind. I got to get my hair fixed up here.
He's got his great Miro board too. I don't know if you know what Miro is, but it's a great software tool.
I think he wanted to show that. I think we started talking and then time ran away from him, but I think he wanted to show the closed system and open system and just the differences between the two. But we'll do it. We'll get it next Tuesday. Let's roll. Let's do it. I think we've got everything done that we need to get done today. What'd you think of Marcus Carey? Do you like him?
Great. Yeah, he just put out right after he got off the show. He put out his he set up the space call that he was talking about.
Yep.
And so that you can go there and on X now you can like click set a reminder so that you're reminded once someone starts their space call. So
what do you think of having him on occasion? I
think it's great.
I like the back and forth with him because I think
we talk. That's what we want. We want to have people that have different views and
just different opinion, but I think that we're cordial to one another. I think we recognize that we're both trying to do the right thing.
Exactly.
Right on. All right, Isaiah. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Anything else?
No.
All right, we'll jump on the phone with you in 8 minutes.
See you guys.
See you guys. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.